How can't you see when you've got the rain in your eyes? It keeps you looking down. Or are the same with a different name. Doesn't have to be your story now.
Greetings, and welcome to GatherVerse AI Evolve 2026, Day 1. The sun has risen, the earth rotates, the moon has landed, and artificial intelligence continues to scale. We are finding ourselves in an unprecedented time of innovation. And at GatherVerse, we intersect at this innovation with humane considerations for accessibility, education, community development, safety, privacy, wellness, ethics, and so much more. We've gone from the prompt generation to contextual, agentic to harness. We're seeing the capability of model context protocols, APIs that are wrapped around with such, multi-headed agentic systems, hyper-realistic immersive intelligence, visual intelligence, and so much more, all while opportunity continues to knock on the door of many as well as defeat. This is a different time. We're seeing thousands of new opportunities arise and ascend, whilst at the same time, many people find themselves in search of different opportunities, find themselves today, May 26, 2026, completing a totally different strategy for this game of life. Vibe code, hyperscalers, vibe designers, and more are working at breakneck speeds here in Silicon Valley and across the world, transmetropolitan, transcontinental, innovating, building, hacking, making, coding, making platforms, protocols, and products as fast as they can in this global AI arms race that we find ourselves in. But if there were more of an important time than now, than ever, to consider with what we innovate today, the impact of its ramifications tomorrow and its benefits and gains, today is that day. For we are afforded such opportunity with the very rare and small window we assemble here at GatherVerse, our 44th Global Summit, our third annual AI Evolve. Have you ever considered the magnitude of what it is that we innovate on our children tomorrow, tonight? Have we ever taken the time to consider what it is, the immensity and the magnitude of what it is that we may be making will also feel that it can make us? And what happens to the technologist when the technology becomes more advanced than it? And what happens when the vibe code says to the vibe coder, I don't need you anymore? We see the godfathers and so-called godmothers on stages, and they don't even agree with one another. Who's right? Who's wrong? One will say that everything's perfectly fine. The other says that we're at an existential crisis. Who's right and who's wrong? I believe the time for such considerations are going to have to come within from our own hearts and our own minds of the judgment therein. And when it comes to judgment and decision making, we have surrendered ourselves vastly to machines. Our cognitive output, our capability to wonder and to imaginate and to dream. The threat 3 years ago was the threat of misinformation, disinformation, and the threat of the ecosystem of information itself. That has now come to pass. Now, when we think about human cognition, the ability to be able to filter and to make decisions, the visualization therein, that we're finding ourselves with the worlds being prompted by a single sentence. virtually. The greatest innovation that we've known in the past 30 years, beyond the shadow of a doubt, is the ability of communication and expression. But now we are communicating more with just humans, but with machines. They can see us through computer vision, speak to us, concatenative and parametric synthesis. They can have elongated conversations. We look at all the different types of things that they're able to do with considerations of what they're thinking with test time compute, how they're processed, the decisions that they're making, and how they make these decisions. Yet we are still flabbergasted. Many technologists in this world, non technologists, how are these machines making decisions on data that they were never trained on? Yet it remains the black box mystery of mechanistic interpretability. But perhaps those aren't things for us to figure out, because on this GatherVerse path that we find ourselves on today, as quick as it comes, as quick as it goes, we have leaders that are assembled with us from around the world to help us make this make more sense. 100% human with a given heartbeat. Thank you for each of us that have come to join us at GatherVerse.live. There are so many of you here in May, concerned, inspired, and with us. And may our gather be well. Greetings, Roundtable. Happy to see each of you today. We'd ask that you kindly mute your mics before called upon. There's a lot for us to consider, and there's a lot to be expressed today. We have here today's roundtable panel, AI Evolve, where models, agents, and visual intelligence are headed, or might I say it might be headed. I have assembled before me now are various voices and people that have been doing this work for some time, many before the boom, many arriving with it. Leaderships in their own minds. Some are returning to GatherVerse and some for the very first time. Roundtable. There's a lot to be able to unpack today, and we only have a little bit of time to do it. Audience, in some ways, we'll be going at quick fire, as some conversations will be appropriately drawn out. Nevertheless, shall we begin? I'm going to start by calling upon each of you, and I want you to briefly, very briefly, let us know who you are, what you are presently doing, and what inspired you to be here with us today. Malvika, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be back. Hi, everyone. I'm Malvika Jitmalani. I'm based in Chicago, and I'm the founder of Atvis Group, which is a human capital advisory firm driven by the core belief that to win in the marketplace, businesses must first win in the workplace. And what brought me here is we are in a world that is changing so quickly. And I think it's important for us to have these conversations about how do we navigate all of this change in a way that preserves the humanness and the dignity of our people. So thank you for having me.
Yes, indeed. And we're very happy to have you here. Welcome. Charisse, it's good to see you. We're having a bit of a mic issue right now. We'll get someone to help you and we'll circle right back. The beautiful black cat, I believe, or a small puppy dog in your lap. We'll return back to you in just a moment. Ellie, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Ellie Buon, and I'm excited to be here. I'm a technology ethicist and cyborg anthropologist, currently working in the space of technoliteracy as a bridge and barrier to power, actively trying to see how I can expand my work to the global south while continuing to do some of that cyborg anthropology work. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Welcome, Ellie. Anisha.
Hi, good to be back here. So I work as a senior data engineer in AI, and I'm also working on my own startup, and which is in stealth right now, and which is based on like critical how to handle critical infrastructure and disaster responses. Thank you for having me as part of the panel.
And what inspired you to be here today, Anisha?
So, since I am working for a long time, I think it's been like a few years that I'm working on the AI space, and currently I work with a lot of AI models, like actually build up the prompts and everything. So I do face a lot of challenges in my day-to-day life, and also like when I'm actually building my startup, I do face some challenges, and there are some things I see, and that inspired me to be here.
Well, congratulations on the startup culture venture that you find yourself on, as many people are finding themselves pioneering in what we call the frontier. We welcome you.
Thank you.
Allison, greetings.
Hello, thank you for having me here. I love doing GatherVerse panels. I'm Alison Morano. I am the founder of the Metaverse Chamber of Commerce, as well as executive director of the Immersive Academy of Arts and Sciences. I'm also pursuing a PhD in AI and machine learning at Walsh College. And I'm very happy to talk about the evolution of AI.
Allison, we're such huge fans and supporters of the work that you're doing, especially when it comes to visual intelligence. How important indeed. We welcome you back to GatherVerse once again. Therese, before we get to you, Dr. Kufari, Therese, how are we looking?
Can you hear me now, Christopher?
Perfectly and wonderfully.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me to my very first GatherVerse. I'm excited and honored to be here. My name is Charis Loveland. I am the founder and CEO of Charisma Intelligence. I work with Christopher on the AI for Human Flourishing Committee. And after working 20 years in high tech, 10 years in machine learning and artificial intelligence, my company is dedicated to putting the humans back in the AI revolution. And I'm gravely concerned about the amount of cognitive ability that is being outsourced and delegated to our large language models. And I am here to do my part to stop it for the future of my 17-year-old daughter and all of our children.
Thank you for that compassionate opening, Therese. We're very happy to have you for your first GatherVerse. It's very wonderful to be able to join in with you today. And it's very wonderful to be able to serve with you on the AI for Human Flourishing with Harvard. Dr. Kufari, welcome back.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to be here. My name is Zakia. I'm a consultant and behavioral scientist, and I've spent the last 25 years in geriatric care, watching what happens when people run out of time to become who they are meant to be. So this experience helped me to bring about a couple of frameworks that I work on. I speak to organizations and diaspora communities and healthcare professionals about why change fails, not because of people's lack of motivation, but because the design ignores the brain. So I'm here and I continue to be a part of GatherVerse because I find this exceptionally valuable, but also these are the questions that with technology, it raises a few questions about memory, about what gets preserved and what gets lost, about who gets to narrate their own story at a scale. And these are the same questions that I work on every day from many different angles. So I'm here because the people building AI need to be in the room with people who are thinking hard about identity, belonging, and really what it costs when technology moves faster than humans that we are inside.
There's such a cost, isn't there, Dr. Kufari? Thank you so much for being able to join us, for saying what you're saying in expression, especially when we think about memory. There wasn't a time too far often when we thought about memory only as humans, or perhaps a localized pet, but now we're taking about human memory to machine memory with the consideration of linear time complexion and more. We're happy to be able to get into these things as well. But first, before we go there, Shreya, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. So for context, I am Shreya and I run Build Her Labs, which in my own words, would be an innovation hub for women and non binary startups in how to go from pre idea to becoming investor ready. And a big part of what we do does involve a lot of AI automation, no code tools, and AI workflows that enables founders to ship things faster. So the reason why I'm here also, this is my first GatherVerse conference as well. So I'm really excited to learn and figure out what kind of challenges founders are needing the most and where there might be certain implications around AI and just trying to figure out the market a little bit better.
Shreya, we welcome you, and we certainly do appreciate the work that you're doing in women's leadership, similar to Malvika and others that will be joining us here at GatherVerse. We certainly do have a real significant emphasis when it comes to women leadership, and for all hearts in the world to be able to have the opportunity to be able to innovate. It's so important, if not now more than ever. But if not now, then when? We'll circle back on that notion. We're certainly happy to be able to join you. Each of you, thank you so much for taking the time, precious time, to be able to join us. And my goodness gracious, with all of you that are joining us at GatherVerse.live and our various social streams, you really are letting us know how important this was today. We certainly didn't expect this many of you joining us. And for you, those of you that are on LinkedIn and YouTube and Instagram and other different locations, we also welcome you too. We always welcome you to come to GatherVerse.live. Never feel free that you have to log into any place to be able to join us. We want this to make it as simple and as private as possible for each of you. We shall begin. When I think about where we're at Roundtable, we are going to be able to go off script and a little bit on script with the questions that you see here. And I'm going to be jumping around, and there's a lot that's going to be said, but this is going to be a bit of an orchestration, if you will. There's a lot to be able to cover. We want to extract as much substance, so please be mindful of the time that you're going to be speaking and sharing. I think about a lot of things in this present time when we're looking at this world of innovation. I look at what's happening with these massive data centers that are being built across this land. I think and consider what the massive IPOs that are getting ready to be filed and the type of immense amount of money. Over 400 million people just in Anthropic and other places have wildly become millionaires overnight. We're starting to see such an increase of wealth and still seeing so much risk capital being poured into markets for innovation and startup and scale. Yet with all this, I still have the consideration of what is the human impact and what is the progressive scale. Typically at GatherVerse, before the AI boom, GatherVerse existed, we would talk about these things and we would have time to be able to slow grow, slow meet the conversation of technology. But even with all the summits that we've had this year so far, with all the different expressions, roundtables and firesides and panels, when it comes to artificial intelligence, it completely changes almost every night. Not week to week, not bi-weekly, Malvika, but every night. So it must be appropriate to be able to start off in a very bland, vanilla sense. Malvika, what are you seeing and what gives you pause right now in this world and in this moment of AI?
I can count on you to ask the hard questions. So thank you for opening with that one. First, I think AI is changing not only the technical capability of what machines can do and pushing the capability frontier, but it's asking, what are we going to become? It's forcing us to ask the question of what is the role of humans, not only in the workplace, but in society? Because we find ourselves in a time and a place where machines are obviously not sentient, but they are able to simulate and emulate human emotion, like empathy and compassion, to a point where they are causing at times psychosis. And we are also in a time where the children in the world today do not know a world where machines don't answer to them or talk back to them. And that can be a wonderful thing for healthcare, for solving problems, various problems in the world that we did not have the technical capabilities to solve before. We just got engineered bacteria, for example, with the help of AI. And there's lots of applications for things like that. But it could also mean that we are entering a very dangerous time. And the godfathers of AI, people like Jeffrey Hinton, Jan LeCun, et cetera, have talked about the risks, including the risk of 10 to 20% chance of AI decimating humanity. So I think that is the intersection at which we find ourselves. The possibilities are endless, and we need to explore the art of the possible, but we need to do it in a really responsible manner with humans at the center.
With humans at the center, no doubt, in a responsible fashion, in an ethical fashion. Allison, as I sit here and as we sit here and listen to the expressions under the sound and voice of what Malvika just conveyed, which we start thinking about the ramifications of our children. We start thinking about the ramifications of this technology, but we also have to start thinking about the ramifications of a whole entire generational, multi generational, and I would say an era of civilizational change. For example, we look at the travesty and our hearts are with the people that just got laid off at Meta. 8,000 people. When I came over to my LinkedIn page, I haven't seen that many layoffs in a good long time. But then as I sit there and thought about it, I just saw it this year. But yet I continue to see it again. I see 8,000 people from Meta. I see 30,000 people from Cisco. I see these things happening. And Allison, the reason that I call upon you is because many of those people were in an industry called extended reality or XR. But at a time, it's just so fascinating where XR seems as if it's in winter, the technology couldn't be more great than it is now. But what took hundreds or even thousands of people, everyone here at GatherVerse, what took thousands of people to create one single virtual world of existence, I'm now seeing that being able to be done by a singular prompt, by a single mind. And I find myself mind blown because when I think about what Malvika is expressing when it comes to the communication of these machines, we are literally seeing the metaverse or hyper realistic immersive simulated environments come about to be, but now they have a sense of intelligence that's imbued in them. Allison, what should we be concerned with? And what are the benefits of what we're seeing today, if there are any from your lens?
So it's interesting to use Meta and their layoffs, and especially in the XR department, because part of what I do in extended reality and spatial reality has to do with creating worlds. And I don't believe that Meta is exactly replacing the workers that they've laid off and the employees because AI has taken over. They're replacing the pieces that they used in extended reality and spatial computing with AI focused work where AI is handling it. But they're not replacing an XR. They're kind of downsizing the entire part of that industry.
That's right.
And so for me as a creator and for other thousands of creators like me, this was a blow not only to the employees, but it also put us having to search for a new platform to work on. And we're doing that right now. And we've seen this continuously in what is known as the metaverse, but it's really spatial computing. So when I was at MetaConnect in September, we were learning ways we could create in the Meta headset and for Meta Mobile. And we came back to find out they were downsizing that entire department. So that means that the AI side of Meta is growing, but that's also getting replaced by AI, and those workers are being also, they are being laid off. That is true. But I believe that Meta's tactics are a little bit different than a full replacement of workers that did the same work for Meta with a complete shifting of priorities. Although they do say that the XR piece is still viable and growing and bigger, but we have other platforms we can go to. But it is on one hand, it's very disheartening to see all the layoffs because we absolutely need the human element. And I like to see stories that say 1,000 people that were laid off 3 months ago are now being rehired because they're finding that it just isn't what they thought it was going to be, and they need the human element. Is there a comment? I mean, that it's just an odd trade-off. And I think we hopefully will see a turnaround because, as Malvika said, we need the human element. And as the other women on the panel said, that we're all fighting to make sure that the trust and guidance and governance stays on the human side as the AI develops.
Certainly agree, and we do certainly hope we do see a turnaround. But in the event that this is not a boomerang opportunity in the moment, sure, we're looking at an unprecedented confrontation when it comes to a challenge, if you will, that where some leadership and executives are saying being completely candid with their cohorts and saying that you are being indeed replaced by AI, and middle management and leaders are coming out and saying we don't have a very easy way to express this, and we have to address this elephant, if you will, in the room. But what are corporations and companies, organizations, and the like are challenged with, Sharice, in this fine time that we find ourselves in? And what is the solution? What is the panacea? Does it exist? What are they doing about these things that are happening in real time? And with that said, Governor Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, just came out with an unprecedented mandate to be able to explore, if you will, universal basic income services, to think about what happens when we lay off all these people that really don't enjoy a half life of an opportunity to get back in the game, because post severance, their unemployment is not going to help them. And we are going to see such a distillation of talent that is going unemployed for months on end, perhaps years on end, because education certainly doesn't seem like a plan B for many right now. Sharice, what do you have for us?
Well, as someone who has been in the high tech industry and survived 6 layoffs, I need to start by welcoming anyone who hears my voice who has been affected by layoffs to join my layoff support group. You can find me on LinkedIn and I will be happy to connect you. It's on Mondays. I am seeing an unprecedented level of layoffs. I myself was let go from Amazon last July and led to the founding of my company. And the reality is, many of these skilled jobs are not coming back. And it is really incumbent on every leader to ensure that the rollout of artificial intelligence in their corporation is humane, is sound, and is well intentioned. I could tell you the doom and gloom version, but I'll tell you the honest version, which is actually more interesting. MIT Technology Review just named mechanistic interpretability one of its 10 breakthroughs for 2026. And mechanistic interpretability is all about understanding the black box behind the AI. But most people still do not understand what AI is and why it's operating the way it does. So that means we are still right now in the place where medicine was before molecular biology. We know what works empirically, but we don't always know why. Therefore, the implication must not be panic, rather, humanity and humility. So, to deploy these systems the way that we deploy drugs, monitor them, check side effects, and always, always have that hand on the stop button with that option to stop the damage. So, we cannot deploy artificial intelligence the way we deploy spreadsheets.
But Sharice, is there such thing as a red button? Is there such thing as putting the genie back in the bottle? Is that really a reality that's grounded in reality? I don't necessarily see that, but I'm open to a new way of thinking on that.
I think that it depends on the company, it depends on the use case, but what I do know from my research is that there are 3 things that AI will not and cannot ever possess. The first is lived context, the ability to understand and interpret and process what's happening around us. And closely linked to that are responsibility and accountability. So therefore, humans must always be in the loop when it comes to both making responsible decisions and working in teams, but most importantly, in that accountability to state clearly, why did we deploy AI in this case? And are we actually responsible for the damage and harm it may cause?
Thank you for sharing that. We'll circle back to you in just a moment. Shreya, Dr. Ghaffari, we're coming back to you in a very quick moment. Please be prepared. Ellie, you're up. I start thinking about this technological empirical observation that Sharice is speaking on when we talk about hyperscale. We start to look and say, on one hand, the more data that we continue to feed these machines, the more capable they're becoming. But some, like Jan LeCun says, it's only short lived, that these machines only have the mind or the mental ability of less than a cat. But Demis Hassabis of Google DeepMind says it's so much more. Who's right? Who's wrong? Both brilliant in what they do. Both brilliant in what they do. But the reality is both are right and 2 things could be true at the same time. What does that mean? When we start to think about everyone in this audience, When we start to think about the immensity of the capability of these models, when they're coming out with their new iterations, whether it's dealing with Opus or whether it's dealing with Nematron, whether it's dealing with GPT, uh, we start to see that they have these so-called PhD evals that are coming out benchmarks, whilst at the same time, they can't tell whether to go to the car wash in a car or walk there in a body. So what are we looking at? Muravak's principle or paradox. What's easy for AI is difficult for humans, but what's easy for humans is difficult for AI. And when Sharice talks about this mechanistic interpretability of this black box interpretation, that is a very big deal because we yet still sit with tremendous amount of mystery to understand the attention and the alignment when it comes to these machines. Ellie, what have you?
Yeah, so I definitely agree that there is a paradox happening, and we really need to spend more time on interpreting this black box. So, where the paradox comes in is the uh, use of AI as a term for so many different models and so many different mechanisms, right? We're just using the term AI like a hammer, and it's like, oh, yes, everything is AI. By that sense, and this is the example I often give up, is I've built AI models throughout my undergraduate experience, which was from 2016 to 2020, right? So, for the definitions and for the sake of terms for right now, AI is essentially taking a data set and presenting it in a way where it feels like a human interaction or conversation. That's often what we think of when we think of our ChatGPTs, our Geminis, and so on and so forth. We get this paradox because imagine if you took one mind and trained it for one specific kind of task 24 hours with energy being like there's no need for sleep. Debatable, but yeah, it's like you cannot do that to a human brain. So where we're talking about, oh, AI is able to do things that humans cannot, it is essentially taking the collective of almost all human intelligence and putting it into one device versus the lived experiences that was brought up prior of being able to do that level of deduction, decision making, prioritization, and critical thinking. One of the concerns that can come up is losing that within our own human selves. We're in such a pursuit of the AI black box that sometimes we forget that we're still exploring the human mind itself. We know more about space than we do know about our own oceans, which then leads to the more vast and concerning dynamics that we have within the mining of the data and its impacts on our planet. You know, we're collecting this data, but you have to understand that it's not just the data centers, it's our operating systems that are, without our consent, collecting our data, giving more room for other folks to respond, but I left many points open.
And many points will be addressed as much as we can with the little bit of time that we have. But Dr. Ghaffari, as Ellie and Sharice talked about, when we start talking about mechanistic interpretability, we also talk about the surrender of our own judgment when it comes to the machines. And this is the dichotomous scale that I'm listening and that I'm looking at right now, this very moment with all of us. But Dr. Ghaffari, here's the deal. As much as we know the capability, and Ellie, you hit it, and Sharice, thank you for opening this up. And this really comes back to what everyone and each of you are talking about. We talk about the immense capability of these machines, but what I look at is the immense capability of the human mind and the human senses, and that AI will never know the scent of the sea. And I want to tell our young people, and I want to tell them all right now, you will never be and can never be replaced because you have the human gene. You have the human code that's been written down. And that which has come from your mother's womb can never be superseded by anything that made by the hands of man. And I think that is really precious and very important to say, including that which is in the confines of our mind. What about the preservation of touch? What about the preservation of feel? And what about the senses of the human heart? Dr. Ghaffari.
That's a really, really important point to bring up. There's AI, which is artificial intelligence, and then there's actual AI, which is actual intelligence, human intelligence. And that has more to do with just knowledge and spitting back facts and what you know and what you read in a textbook. It has a lot more to do with your nervous system and how you feel things and how, no matter how perfect a picture looks, your nervous system can tell you, that'll be the first alarm to say something is wrong, something doesn't feel right. Okay, no matter how great our the AI agents that we're building, no matter how great they become, they never can make the kinds of decisions and have that type of internal compass that you do as a human, and that will never be replaced. And so this has a lot to do with not the interaction between you and a machine, but the interaction between you and all of society, your entire community, whether it's someone that you're working with, a coworker or an employee or an employer. And the thing that troubles me a lot is we look at these agents that we're building and we're asking them to do everything for us, including schedule our week. But when they make these decisions day after day, when it leads to success, we as humans become dependent on that. We become dependent on something else, someone else making those decisions for us. And majority of the time it'll go the way it needs to go. But if it goes, the only time you'll see the danger is when there's a failure in the system. So you become used to something else making all these successful decisions for you, but you don't understand the gravity of the end result until it fails miserably.
That's
and then
right.
you ask yourself, okay, how did we get here? Why did we depend on these things for so long and with
Sure.
such trust? And I think that is something that needs to be on our radar. We need to keep our finger on that tab for as long as AI and humans will coexist together. That will affect, I think, not just how we do things at work, but also how we show up in the world for each other.
I agree, and I think it's immensely important for that to be said, especially with the considerations of the work. And thank you, Dr. Kafari. Well met, well put, and expressed, especially with the consideration of the work and the external, really the challenging and very appreciative to have leadership of folks like Malvika and Sharice or what they're doing when it comes to different groups. I mean, Sharice just said that she has a group that's dedicated for those that have been laid off. I mean, who would have thought of such a thing when the last time we checked that the numbers of the economy are growing so well? But I feel that's such a given misnomer in the consideration of things. But I also think about Shreya and the hard work that you're doing with build her community. This is what's appropriate. This is what this conversation is bringing us to, because here's the reality. We're at a bifurcated path. While many students and many people that are already settled into the career path are finding themselves either A, not being able to enter into the workforce, even with all the given credential and a master degree serves the benefit of a rock in a garden if it can't grow. Whilst at the same time, when you look at those that have years, decades, if you will, or a decade and a half of experience in a given thing, they can't find gainful employment and new opportunities when it comes to competing not only with human corpus of intelligence, but now we're competing with machines for the self-same position and more. When I think about this, we are finding ourselves into a renaissance. We're finding ourselves with the need for these leaders, for these students, and everyone in between to become entrepreneurs. This is the bifurcated path. But this time, now that you're becoming an entrepreneur, this isn't a side hustle and this isn't a side gig. This, for many, is becoming their main hustle. And I have seen many leaders here at GatherVerse speak on these stages with incredible backgrounds where they had worked and no longer. And they are becoming consultants and advisors, and they are attempting for the very first time to become entrepreneurs, and they were never taught at. And they're finding that machines are the best guide that they have at the moment and mentors. I think about this, Shreya, and the work that you're doing. We certainly do doff your hat to those and the others that are assembled with us that are doing this, especially when it comes to the preservation of women contribution in these machines. Because as Dr. Ghaffari said, we have to keep an eye on these things. We're surrendering ourselves to judgment of these machines. But when these machines are majority made in homogeneity, made by men, that's a real big problem, especially when we think about hyperscale. Shreya?
Yes, and I definitely agree because I've met so many founders with so many different solutions to a problem they think they're trying to fix using AI. But a lot of times these decisions comes from a context from a certain data that people have fed into the internet. And it does not even half of the time relate back to what this person might be going through. And I think the other day I had this healthcare founder who was trying to create a menopause app, and she went to ChatGPT saying, I want to build a business plan, tell me how to do, and it took out the data from a lot of things, but it was not relevant to her. And I asked her, like why do you think you're not able to scale? And the thing she said was that when you try to look at scale, there's a lot of dependency on a lot of people. And when you try to remove people and you trust an AI to fix your problem, guess what? You're still creating more new problems because now the AI is like an intern. It's not trained enough to make the right decisions. And instead of you saving time, you're making even more time trying to fix and train the AI, where you could have just spoken to someone who could have been your potential customer and just talk directly and make changes. So I would say when it comes to scalability or even the fact that AI is used, it helps in terms of workflows. It does help in certain things like sending out an email or remembering what you said to the other person because there are so many note taking apps. But when it comes to an actual operational stuff, I feel like women trust people from the connections they have made and not just by something that put out there, because not everyone's the same. Nobody has the same problems as you. So if you use AI as a tool but not as a substitute, I would say that will help your operation scale up in a better way. But at the same point, you still have to validate, because AI is not binary. It's not a yes or no. You need to add more context. You need to add more regulations. And the more you ask yourself, is this information even the right information? Fact check, because most of these AI, they're not regulated. I don't know about the UK, but I've heard that EU has a really strong AI act on what is being told and how it's being told. But when it comes to startup ecosystems elsewhere, because I'm based in London, I'm seeing that a lot of these AI agents, they promise that they're scaling it, but actually they're just removing one problem and creating 10 others. So it's totally up to you on how much you value your time. Because as a founder, I think your time's precious. And if you're using AI, you better have someone to validate and fact check it.
Yeah, we certainly better. And we start thinking about the ground truth. And where does the native ground truth come from, Ellie? Very briefly, Malvika, we're circling back to you as well as you, Allison. Where does the ground truth come in when it comes to AI? Because these things speak as if they're telling the truth, and people are so astounded when AI lies. But it was trained by humans, and if humans lie, machines lie. It's just a natural occurrence of things, and the information that they're able to convey seems and feels so truthful. We can't tell whether we're digesting a lie or if we aren't. So now we're subjected to our information diet being spread and passed along with insufficient data, erroneous doctrine of information. Where do we find the ground truth? It seems to me between the confines of the human heart.
Yeah. So this is where we run into the problem of something called scientification. It is where just because it is STEM backed, it is automatically seen as the ultimate truth. So you can have two researchers researching the same topic, have two different conclusions, and then suddenly now you have two truths, even though there might be subjectivity, bias that might have happened in one or both research projects. Bringing this back to AI, when we're finding that ultimate truth, that's where you cite your sources, right? The amount of times that I have asked AI about myself and what a possible interviewer might ask me, and they him the heck out of me. I am a guy, according to many AI models, right? So when we're looking at AI, it's the ultimate truth, and this is where it's very big on literacy, teaching people how to understand what these AI models that they're working with actually are, and understanding how to understand and interpret data. That literacy is so key for understanding when you're being lied to and how to seek out truth.
Sure, sure. And I'm such an advocate and a fan. I was asked by an audience at the WICT organization, an incredible WICT organization, and someone asked me how I use artificial intelligence. And I told them, I said, one of the better things that I like to do is to take the information that I have in my own mind and give that to the machine instead of me having to extract 100% of the information from the machine, Malvika, and to be able for it to be able to fill my mind. In other words, to be able to take and process what's in my database, and I'll get that for AI to be able to interpret, rather than me have to be able to fully be dependent on this machine to interpret what's in its database when its own makers can't even interpret by way of the black box that we're talking about, Sharice. When we talk about that, we don't necessarily know all the things that are coming from it. And we think with the consideration of misaligned intent. I don't know the intent of these models and these machines at the end of the day. It does give me pause, Malvika, when I think about that. But nevertheless, let's change the subject here for the moment. We talk about the benefit and the good. We talk about the importance of more women leaders, if you will, how appropriate with joined and adorned by so many different women leaders here before us. I think about this in the sense of the medical field, for example, or in scientific discovery. Someone was talking about science. A few people actually think about synthetic molecular technology. We start thinking about synthetic proteins and more, and the human genome being duplicated by a prompt. And so I think about these things, Malvika. What is from your leadership lens of expertise? What is your why? Why are you doing when it comes to women's leadership? And for what important reason might you lend with us today of how critical this is and how this critical this has become?
I'm so glad you asked. I think, in short, I would say I'm doing this, and by this I mean the community I lead called Women Shaping AI. I'm building this community because I strongly believe that we cannot leave half the population behind again. It's not a technological revolution if we leave half the population behind, as we've done with other technological revolutions. We know from multiple studies and data now that women are less likely to use AI in the workplace compared to men in similar positions. We also know that it's not just a usage problem, it's also a pipeline problem. So less than a third of AI researchers are women. And when you look at enrollments in AI training programs globally, women only make up 28% of those enrollments. And that's a problem because when you look at the roles and the professions that are most vulnerable to disruption and displacement, i.e., professions like administrative, clerical type work, women make up something like 94% of some of these professions. And so, and that's, we're only talking about the workplace. That's not even getting into the effects that AI has and the ways in which AI is being used and is being weaponized against women and children in many ways, in terms of creating non-consensual images, etc. These undressing apps and all of that. That's a whole different category of problems to explore. So I think these are just some of the reasons why I want to make sure that women are at the decision-making table in our organizations, in our communities, in politics, and in governance, and that we are not just passive users of this technology.
I agree, and I wholeheartedly support that. We recently launched our GatherVerse. It's not a plug; it's just the truth. Our GatherVerse Women's AI Summit for September. It may be the very biggest summit we've ever had. We're already looking at extending it to 3 weeks, let alone the first week that we've only given it for a couple of days. And I think that that is a testament to how many different leaders, women and men, that do care about this, many allies are that are in support of the work that you're doing. So, Malvika, we certainly doff our hats. Sharice, we're coming to you in just a moment. But Allison, as I sit here and think about it, I know that you're part of XR Women, which are partners of GatherVerse, which are huge partners and allies of GatherVerse, an ironclad relationship. I think about the impact when we start thinking about today, we're only dealing with these language foundational models for the most part and agentic systems. And it's very simplistic. Some say that we're at AGI, some say we don't. That's a conversation for a different day. I wish we had more time to talk about that, Ellie. But anyway, so Allison, but when I think about what Malvika has expressed, those are very damning statistics when it comes to where we're at now, because the heightened scale of the investment of the capital and the type of models that we're seeing when it comes to actual data, synthetic data, these models continue to grow and dominate, which we're looking at 3 of the biggest IPOs in the world. Why is that important? Because, Allison, you are in a field of study of research and operation scientifically that deals with not only language of expression, but of visualization. And I have a real concern that the visualization and the expression that we use, that we now must use in global society to be able to get along, will be 100% or 90%, 95% interpreted by men. That's a real concern for me. What can you lend to the women that are here today to let them know the emphasis of the importance, briefly, of the work that you're doing and why?
So you're rightly, you should be concerned, rightly so. I don't know how much wisdom I can impart to this particular group of women because they are so impressive. I can say, Malvika, I have been around quite a while, and those numbers that you quoted are no different than the numbers that were quoted back in 1995 when the World Wide Web came out of DARPA, and they started with the same types of studies. And I was part of a group called Web Girls. And it was the same. Women and younger girls do not step up to technology. They take a backseat to men. In the workplace, they are not using it. The best thing we can do is use it and and it's very simplistic to say it this way, but I try to give as much data as possible about myself and what I'm looking for, because I can feel the bias. You always have to check for the bias. A really easy story I had was I was creating a XR Women Global presentation, and it was about AI. And I just asked it to create a woman in the workplace using AI, or a person in the workplace. And it gave me a man, and I had to ask it 3 times. And I showed it to the woman I was working with for the talk. And she said, "Do you think that it will create a woman who's dressed?" And I hadn't noticed that it was some sort of a robot and not very well dressed. And I went back in and I said, "Could you put some clothes on it?" And we can see this constantly. And I know that women don't use, I know this from speaking to women, that they don't use it in the office as much as men because they feel a little bit guilty. Men do not feel guilty using it. There's all these different levers and things that we need to do to bring women more into using AI, even though there are thousands of women, but the statistics still bear in the other direction. And the best we can do is to continue to challenge it and continue to point out the bias and continue to watch for it ourselves so that we can get to the place where everybody is comfortable. And my dream is to get to a 50-50 at least split between AI giving you answers and help and guidance that is not biased. There is a book called The Invisible Woman, which really lays it out, especially for the workplace.
That's incredible. That's incredible and thank you for sharing that, for that to be a dream with all the things that we could dream, for that to be a dream. It's almost a shame at the same time that would have to be a dream. It truly is a shame. And thank you, Allison, for the contribution and for kind of bringing us back to the reality at hand. I think about this, and Charis, we're coming to you in just a second. Shreya, I'd like for you to give us the importance of why it's so necessary, critical for the need for more women entrepreneurs, and briefly what you're doing about that specifically.
Yes, there's no greater time than.
Go ahead, Charisse. I wanted that for Shreya. In fact, let's hold on that for woman Charisse. Shreya, go ahead.
Yeah, so based on my observation of founders, and I'm specifically focused on female and non-binary, and the common thing that I've noticed is that before the external world says that, oh, your product might be good, women try to wait for the perfect time that, oh, I'm going to launch this product once I achieve X amount. And I feel women try to be too perfectionist, and hence the data that you see, which is 2% of female founders are invested. It's not because they don't have the talent or the skills. It's more around the timing that they wait for things while someone else has already sailed the boat and done things. And what I'm trying to do with Build is also trying to remove that barrier that we have internally, because we think like, if I achieve X amount of users or had X amount of sponsors or cash in my money, then only this, let's say, startup is profitable or not. I feel what we need is more like a validation of like-minded founders, and that's where Builder Labs also exists, because we don't promote that, hey, this is your journey. We say, hey, there's other founders with you. They might be ahead in investment. They might have had a problem that you might be about to face. And instead of creating barriers, if women start supporting each other and say like, oh, this is what I did when I had to trademark my assets or whatever, I feel that's what people need, because a lot of connections and networking, like what I'm noticing is there's so much noise, especially in London and in these capital cities, where we go for events, we end up trying to be anywhere and everywhere, but the value of accountability, the value of, do I even relate to this person, usually comes at the backseat, because I feel a lot of times women don't feel safe and secure in certain rooms. And unless you create a room for them where there's only women and you're in a chill sauna, or maybe like a place where it's so relaxed, only then women actually tend to psychologically open up. So I would say, in order to solve that problem, just like I said, it all goes back to people, it all goes back to community, it all goes back to how you take community as one of your distribution. Because if you see Lovable, which is a vibe coding tool everyone uses these days, you will be so surprised of how less they spend on marketing, because you would feel like, oh, they're everywhere around. Whenever you look at a banner, you see Lovable is there. But actually, Lovable has created the concept of ambassadors. It has opened the concept of thought leadership on your LinkedIn. And now everyone is using Lovable, sharing their stories, and that's marketing. And that's what giving them most of the revenue. So going back to the initial question, I would say the problem is not, like, there is a problem. I won't say the problem isn't there, but it's also resistance from our own internal world, which we need to start not question ourselves and just go for it. Like, not wait for things to happen and be given to you, but just go with the gut feeling. Like, if I had this problem and if God has given me the grace to solve this problem, there must be a reason. So just go with it.
Thank you, Shreya. I know there's more that we could unpack with that, but she talked about, and I heard a hidden gem in there, which we advocately support, was one of our standards of community development. You and I share in community, Sharice. You hold communities and have communities. You just bared witness and shared with all of us that you've been laid off six different times, and even in last July, if you will. What is the importance of community? What is the importance of entrepreneurship with that mind thinking when we know that corporations aren't as secure as they once were?
Community is everything. It's nothing short of oxygen. And I think that with all of the benefit technology has brought us with connection, like Shreya's in London, and I can talk to all of you all over the world. I'm based here north of Boston. At the same time, we have to start local and remember that entrepreneurship doesn't necessarily have to be about boiling the ocean. For instance, I brought some of my humanity related talks to local folks in my community in Maine, in New Hampshire recently. And so I am just starting by taking one foot in front of the other and starting hyper local and starting by helping my local community, my local school district to just stop with the overwhelm and influx, because the first thing that we lose as we get overwhelmed by information is the ability of our nervous systems to function. Many people, due to information overload, are walking around with their sympathetic nervous system on overdrive, not operating correctly. And so for us to return to humanity, it starts with a hyper local movement of making sure and checking in with the people around you, making sure that they're okay, that their nervous systems are functioning and regulated, because we can't support each other if we are drowning.
What do you say to that, Dr. Kafari?
I agree with both women 100%. And what they bring up is really important. And we need to understand that we as humans are not built for this type of world that we live in today. For example, the point of being inundated with information and having our nervous system be constantly in this fight or flight mode permanently, that separates you from not only what you yourself want, what you feel, and to bring up Sharia's point of saying, well, we second guess ourselves a lot of the times when we're in these rooms, not because we don't have the qualifications or the dedication or the determination to make it work, but because we are living in that fight and flight mode, that nervous system all the time. And when you're in that, excuse me, your logical brain literally does not come online to allow you to think. So if you're constantly living in this mode, you're never thinking for yourself. You're just going with where the ocean is taking you. I think it's really important to take a step back and just sit in the silence and figure it out from a foundational perspective, rather than jumping into the water and just swimming with everyone else.
You know, I feel like I'm connecting with you all, the dots. I just heard with what you just said right there, that moment, right now, Dr. Ghaffari. And I feel like there's a lot of internalization that needs to take place. But there's so much leverage opportunity, isn't it, when it comes to community, everyone? I think about the work that Malvika's doing when it comes to women's leadership and more, but the work that Sharice is doing, the advocacy when it comes to people that are experiencing post-social impact of losing a job and finding some type of community, with the work that Shreya is involved with when it comes to entrepreneurship, but beyond entrepreneurship, with the courage and the gusto to take that next leap and step, with the work that Ellie's doing and understanding and helping break down really in some ways the technological stack and then help it make sense to distill it to others that haven't been involved and not educated in that world. And then with the work that you're doing with Dr. Ghaffari, with the real consideration of the preservation of human life and human expression with the attention mechanism that humans are given and not just machine derived. And then Allison, what an incredible testimony of what you saw in the 90s, where many of our viewers, many of them that are broadcasting through educational forums and groups and more, weren't even born. But the things that you bore witness to and the same statistics that Malvika presented to us are the same statistics that yet haunt this system today. I would submit to anyone that is with us, that's watching in this live stream, to join and follow these different leaders that are on this stage. I would also submit to you to consider the magnitude of what's been expressed when it comes to women's leadership and innovation. These are leaders. These are people that are taking their time outside of their career path and finding a way for others to be able to sustain both women and men. We cannot have success in technology if we do not have every willing heart to be able to contribute to today's modern innovations. We are behind at a time where we've never moved this way and this fast before in the frontier. I want to thank each of you for joining us today. As quick as it comes, as quick as it goes, we hope to see you on a return again. We have incredible summits that are slated for this year. We certainly are happy to be able to help internalize this dialogue and this conversation with you today. Our gather was well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to day one of AI Evolve Summit 2026. What a fantastic roundtable and what a great way to kick off and kickstart the summit today. But we have another amazing roundtable discussion here where we're going to be talking about AI across business and daily life. I'm very excited to have my panelists with me here today. So thank you to each and every one of you for joining us. What we're going to do is we're going to go around to each individual person. I would like for each of you just to do a quick introduction of who you are. But also I would like you to also say, why you're here today as well. Just so that we can get some expressions going. And then we'll get straight into the questions, and there's also a lot for us to discuss. So we're going to start with Dalia to my left-hand side, right-hand side. I don't know which one it would be. So Dalia, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Alan, Sam. So over to you,
I'm the Senior Vice President at Tech.
I think you're having some issues, Dalia. So we'll head over to you, Alan. Hello, Alan. Good to see you again.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Hi, my name is Alan. I'm the founder of Studio Bahia. I founded Studio Bahia a few years back in response to children as young as 9 years old committing suicide, self-harm, and refugee camps. My first job out of college was at the World Bank, and so I used to do international development projects, large-scale projects to reduce poverty. And so Studio Bahia, we use virtual reality to provide a number of therapies. This is what we manufacture, our headsets. This is our team. This is what's inside.
Fantastic.
And incidentally, we're successful in hospitals. It's used to reduce the use of opioids, reduce the need for sedation in children. If you know about sedation, if you sedate a child in the hospital, you have to keep them under observation for a long time. So it's quite expensive for hospitals. It's also quite dangerous as well. But we reduce preoperative anxiety, pain management. We do a number of things, and now we're doing our kind of masterpiece, centerpiece therapy, which is EMDR.
Okay.
And we're doing EMDR, developing a small language model this summer, and then we're trialing it in the largest burn unit in the United States. The idea is if we do EMDR through VR and a mobile phone, 3 sessions within 72 hours of arriving at the hospital, I think we'll reduce PTSD by 85%. So anyway, it'll be a wild summer. I'm very happy to be here with you. Delia, welcome back.
Thank you for joining us again, Dalia, and also thank you for the introduction, Alan. Dalia, we'll head over to you now. Let's see if your microphone is working fantastically well now. So, Dalia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Can you hear me okay?
I think you're having a little bit of lag. It seems to be jumping around. Maybe you want to try and rejoin in on your phone. That would be the best way to just rejoin us, and then we can get you up and straight onto the stage again. So over to you next, Sally. Please introduce yourself. Great to see you once again. And also welcome back to GatherVerse as well, Sally.
Hey, Russell. Good to see you again. It's Dr. Sally Good, founder of Good Body, Good Brain. I started out as I've always been a geek. I started out as a geek way back when, there was a company called Digital Equipment Corp. Anybody remember distributed processing back in the day? I have been through the third disruption, which is the internet connection. I worked in that thing. And my first company I built, sort of computer principles, was a company called Database. And no one had ever heard of that name. So I'm really old. I can tell you lots of stuff. So I'm happy to be here. And one of the reasons I'm here is because having lived through that particular era of non-democratizing AI, I am here to beat the drum of women of certain age, women of color, get on board because the train is leaving the station. We have got to get rolling here. And physical AI is right around the corner. And when we start having robots delivering our mail in the office and running our lawns, then we're really going to have to be on it. Like, okay, who's programming these things, these people? These
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely going to get into that discussion, Sally. Thank you so much for joining us. Grant, great to see you once again as well. Please introduce yourself, Grant. I know who you are very, very well, but most people don't. So please introduce yourself.
Let me come off mute. Thanks a lot, Russell. I want to thank the entire GatherVerse team. Been working with Christopher Lafayette for a number of years. Good to see a lot of people on this panel. I think we've joined the panel in the past. I am Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, and that stands for Business Development and Marketing. I've got a 30-year history in technology and working all the way up from basic communications in the VoIP world, voice over IP, all the way through compute and storage, all the way now into the application layer with artificial intelligence, machine learning. And these things are very, very exciting. I've never seen an adopted technology such as we have at our disposal right now because of what it's able to do. But I'm really interested in what we can do for small business owner, what we can do for Main Street America, and really change the dynamic and change the conversation and the narrative that we've been really experiencing maybe for the last 50 to 100 years, and taking us into a renaissance of business development and personal branding, which I do a lot of, because now you can do it at scale that we've never done before. So I'm all about speed to market. I'm all about communication modality, and I'm all about scalability. And I thank you for having me on the panel today.
Pleasure having you with us, Grant. And Dalia, you've joined us once again. Shall we try once again and see if it works? Shall we?
Yeah.
Time?
Yeah. So sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Fantastic. Loud and clear now. Thank you so much.
Third time's a charm. So I'm Delia Perla. I'm SVP of Revenue here at BizTech. BizTech provides operational digital twins and agentic AI orchestration for enterprise and for mid-market industrial projects. And we work with municipalities, education, data centers. And the reason I'm here is because I think this is a provocative conversation, especially as it relates to our personal lives, but also our lives at work. And I think the context for this conversation isn't happening enough within the personal realm, especially for someone like me who works at it professionally every day, and it's entering into my personal lives. And obviously there are governance and ethics that there's not enough venues to talk about how we're creating governance in our personal lives. We talk about it for enterprise, but we don't talk about it personally. So I'm an optimist. I really come at this conversation with an optimistic lens, but also I'm cautious on some different topics related to this.
Well, thank you for joining us, Dalia, and it's great to see you once again as well. We'll head over to you shortly, Camilla, but first we'll quickly introduce Adam. Adam, welcome. I don't know if I've met you before. I think I might have, maybe, or this is your first time, I'm not sure, but please introduce yourself, and also welcome to GatherVerse if this is your first time.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. My name's Adam Johnson. I am the founder and CEO of Rafer Consulting. I do I'm an AI strategist and advisor working in smart AI adoption through robust readiness and governance. I'm also a fellow at the Academy for AI Strategy. I'm going to be recording a talk on the architecture of trust shortly at Oxford Talks, and I'm also the author of Evolutionary Capitalism. This is my first time speaking at GatherVerse. I attended a couple, I guess it'd be 2 months ago or so. But really, my big thing with AI, and both in the work and the personal spaces, is to show that it's not scary, provided you have the right governance. It's kind of like the ocean. You have to pay attention. Don't turn your back on it, because those waves will come and grab you, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Adam, and it's great to have you with us as well. And last but not least, Camilla, great to see you once again. Please introduce yourself and welcome back once again as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I am Camila Sanders, CEO of Greater Than Equal. I'm a global ecosystem strategist. I work at the intersection of technology, sustainability, and humanity. Basically, I do strategy advising and facilitation for large-scale, multi-stakeholder initiatives. I serve as a translator, helping people work across different barriers as far as like technology or translating that to the community or even to the government, etc. And the reason why I'm here, I do a lot of work with accelerator programs. So I talk to a lot of startups, I talk to a lot of small businesses. And so this is definitely something that I'm passionate about, is kind of helping people to work more efficiently and understanding the way that small business and even corporations, because I come from the corporate world, work, but how do you translate that to help people to be more efficient and have more impact on the world?
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Camilla. And I'll quickly introduce myself. My name's Russell. I am the Affairs Director at GatherVerse, also Global Affairs Director. Let me get my actual title right. And also co-founder at Just Verify as well. And Just Verify is building the trust infrastructure for AI. So we're focused on building the trust infrastructure for AI for organizations and people to better understand and verify and responsibly adopt AI systems across the world, in a nutshell. So let's get straight into this roundtable discussion of AI across business and daily life. So question one is, how has AI changed your daily life so far? I mean, that's a big topic. I will say that. I'm sure it's disrupted all of our lives. So what I'm going to do is, because I know Grant has so much to say and so much to share, we'll start with you first, and then we'll head over to Camilla after. So Grant, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thank you for saying this or picking me up for that particular topic. AI has completely given me a new opportunity in swim lane for a lot of things that I've done over the last 30 plus years in the technology realm. And what I'm saying about that is that before, technology was really siloed in your IT departments, your MIS departments, let's say. Now anyone can code. Anyone can take and utilize this technology at scale for text, for video, for imagery, for understanding the undertone of how technology works and proliferates throughout our entire world. We got introduced, as Sally talked about, with the internet, and that's just expanding the computer networks. Before there was just local area networks, there were some wide area networks, but now we have real-time networks. This is a big, big thing. I remember video conferencing back in the early 2000s, very expensive to do. You really couldn't do it. The technology existed, but it cost too much to actually happen. Now we have it at our fingertips. This is a technological leap and platform leap for the human species that's never been happened before. Now we're dealing what we call the timing and harmony of that. I see that a lot is where, how do we now ride this new horse? More or less, we see it. It's very, very fast. It has a lot of moving parts. How do we now harness it and bring it into our daily work lives? And that is where I'm working at now, especially on Main Street in the SMB, small business world, and personalized of individuals and career development. You now have a tool at your disposal that you've never had before, that has its tentacles into every fabric of human life, as far as we know, right? But how do we utilize that? That's a very big thing, right? This is the biggest thing. We have a technology now that's bigger than government. That's a big thing. It's bigger than just the most powerful people on the planet. They're powerful to a certain degree, but now you see the movement of finance going through many different circles that never happened before. So you have access. So my job is to give now access to that population of people that have never had access to this type of technological platform ever before. And we've got to come to grips with this, because you're going to have to upskill. This is something that needs, like, what? We need to step back and retool ourselves. Education is going to change. How we actually attain or absorb or I would say education of itself, academia, is changing. You can talk to any college in this world right now and say, wow, the way we used to test individuals, how we used to say you have intelligence or you don't have intelligence, you have knowledge, you have a skill set in this area, is fundamentally changing. Now, I've always been a person about application engineering. I don't want to just know about knowledge about something. I want to know how to apply it. We are in the fabric now of applied technology. How do you apply AI in your everyday business life? Where is the friction points? Not just the cool stuff. Yeah, you can make some really cool images. Christopher is fantastic at making these images and videos. He is a phenom of doing that, right? But how does he apply it in his business? That's the thing. Does that move the needle in what you are doing, or does it not? And you have to discern that on your everyday workflows. What tool set do I need? What skill set do I truly need to acquire? And what is the mind shift change do I have to come to grips with? Because maybe the first time in human history, we have to take a step back and look at ourselves as a species. That is what AI that I see in all these different roundtables that I've been on that's asking us to do. Do we truly understand ourselves, our own capabilities, the natural world that we're already infused with?
And I'm going to jump in now, Grant.
Go right
I'm
ahead.
going to jump in quickly because one thing I always say all the time is always remain curious and always ask questions. So it doesn't matter what you're doing, what you're learning, what you're adopting, etc. Always remain curious and always ask the questions and always find out what's going on, because education, like you said, Grant, is extremely important. So is adoption, so is learning how to use the tool, like you said, but also learning how to use AI in the correct way as well. When we're talking about building applications, when we're talking about building AI systems, when we're talking about architecture, when we're talking about vibe coding, really in a nutshell, it's important for all those uses as well. So thank you very much, Grant, for sharing. Appreciate you very much for joining us. And also, I just want to add also the UK has recently implemented a legal, what would you call it, regulation, so to speak, where basically all schools now, if they're using generative AI, they have to provide product safety on those tools. So anyway, thank you very much, Grant. Let's go on to the next question. Oh, sorry, Camilla. I mean, we need to introduce you. Sorry. I'm doing terrible moderating today, Camilla. How has AI changed your daily life so far? Sorry, Camilla.
You're doing great.
I was jumping to the next. I was like, let's go to the next question.
No, you're absolutely doing great. You always do.
Thank you, Camilla.
But no, I'll just add very quickly to what Grant said. I mean, AI has actually been integrated into our lives for a long time, right? And a lot of us on the panel are in technology, and we know that, behind the scenes, corporations have been using AI. And you think about like Netflix or Alexa, those things have been around. Really, the difference is that everyone's using it, right? Everyone's talking about it. And I think that's great. And one of the things that, Grant, you said is that and Russell, you said this too, you really have to come at it with the right skill and mindset. So me personally, how I use it, I have decades of experience in marketing and communications and strategy, right? So I don't just, ask AI a question and take the output and run with it. Because of that, from my own experience, I speak into AI and I said, hey, what do you think? This is what I want to say. Can you put this in a more concise manner? Or let's be a thought partner, or help me to consolidate this research, but then always checking that research, right? So it has helped me be more efficient. It has helped me to accelerate the work that I'm doing. But the only reason why it has is because I come with that skill set and that experience that I'm putting into the AI to come out with something better.
That's a very good point, Camilla, and thank you very much for sharing. And if we throw agentic AI and fully autonomous systems and then start chucking those into the mix as well, I mean, there was a report that I read. I don't know, it might have been recently or even last year. I can't even remember. I have so many different things that I read. But one of the interesting facts was Gartner, back in like 2025, said that basically the top organizations are only going to adopt roughly 15 AI agents for each of their enterprises, right? We're talking about the top 500. Now they predict by 2028 that they're going to adopt 150,000 agents per enterprise. So if that is 150,000 per enterprise, imagine how many autonomous agents that each individual person is going to have just for their daily lives. And every person also is going to need, what I like to say, their own individual sovereign AI, right? Their own context window into the world, because that's going to be extremely important, because that's the way in which you're going to be going into the world, so to speak, with other autonomous AI agent systems and interact with them, they're going to act on your behalf and your own best interest. So I just wanted to put that statistic out there because that was one of the most craziest things that I read. And I thought, well, if an enterprise is having 150,000, how many is each individual person across the world going to have? And we're talking about 3 billion people. So to me, that's mind-blowing. Anyway, let's go over to Dalia and then also Adam Johnson. So the next question for you both is, how should small businesses approach AI differently from large enterprises? Talking about large enterprises, which we just spoke about. Dalia, what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think it really depends on the small business itself. What I'm finding is that some small businesses are ready to take on a whole agent team, and others are still working on generative AI and looking at their content and their marketing and their workflow. So I think it really, what I advise people is to start on the friction point, the pain point that you have the most, maybe the mundane things where you could still have the person in the loop, but also be able to minimize the time in doing those tasks. The thing about small businesses is that they need a quick ROI. So many of them are just clear and concise on adapting many AI tools where they can see the quick ROI with their marketing, with their, let's say, display and video generation, and they could edit those after AI has maybe created different templates for them. So it really depends. I also have a client who their pain point was actually access, giving people access in a variety of different languages to the content that was on their website. So they adopted an AI agent called Hal that sits on their website, communicates 24/7 in any language. So think about it. Any person anywhere can access the information on their site in any language, in text or in audio. So for them, that was their biggest pain point, and it has fulfilled an ROI for them pretty rapidly within 30 days. So in contrast with enterprise, and I'm not saying small businesses don't care about governance and policy, but enterprise is really looking at systems of governance, right? So they're looking at their data, they're looking at the management of that data and those data silos, and how can they bring those complex compliance requirements into something that's going to work for them, building a model. They're looking at AI orchestration for their workflows. What are those mundane tasks within the systems that can actually have a human in the loop, but with an automation component from end to end? Some of them are specialized teams that they need kind of robust data architecture, and they're looking at AI and how it could infiltrate some of that process for them. Structured training programs, so AI doesn't just become a shadow IT layer. AI can actually assist with that as well. So in enterprise, it's more looking at systems and governments. I think for small business, they're looking at fast ROIs, what tools can be utilized as they get up to speed and actually build some automated agents for them.
Yeah, that's so true. Honestly, that is so true. The positioning for small businesses and large businesses is completely different. And I saw the statistic as well where, small businesses are less likely to adopt AI because they want that fast ROI, like you're saying. They sometimes don't see the point in it. Yeah, okay, it might help efficiency. Yeah, okay, it might complete tasks for them and etc. But some of them just don't see the point, and they're just like, well, I'm a one-man band, so to speak. So, why should I adopt it? But in actual fact, really, the benefits that it offers you far outweighs the learning curve to learn it or even to adopt it. So I completely agree with what you're saying today, and thank you so much for sharing. Adam Johnson, let's bring you into the conversation. There's lots have been discussed so far. What are your thoughts on everything so far? Do you agree with Dalia? Do you disagree with Dalia? Do you agree with anything what we're saying, etc.?
Yeah, so I agree to a certain extent. I do, obviously smaller businesses need to have ROI more immediately, and that's 100% true, right? I I do think that they need to keep governance or risk management at the fore, because they are they're going to be more prone to damage, whether that be reputational. They put out something that's clearly AI produced, and that could damage their reputation going forward. But if they have even a I'll call it governance light framework put around what they do, then that's going to help protect them from that. And I think when you're in a smaller company, you really do need to be thinking about that calculated risk. You know, you have to understand what levers you can pull, right? If you're starting to use, for example, you have Microsoft 365 and you have Copilot, right? And you want to use that, you want to leverage that, and putting that investment in, making sure that you get that ROI there. But when you start putting stuff out into ChatGPT, feeding those models, and are not careful about turning off the flow of your information, your data into the general model, then you start putting yourself at risk. And the thing that we need to remember about small companies and big companies, most big companies started off as small companies, and part of the reason they're so successful is because they kept a few of their cards close to their chest, right? Think of, you think about Amazon back in the mid 90s, right? That was new, fantastic, all that kind of stuff. If they hadn't done that, there may have been even more competition at the get-go, right? So that said, I am a big governance fan. That's something that I will tout the entire way, just because of the risk that a small company would put themselves into. Large companies, they have the dollars, they have the teams that can help absorb those mistakes that are made within the context of AI, right?
That is true. Yeah. No, I do agree. Governance is important, extremely. And, when we talk about all the different areas within AI, right? If you think about all the areas, so we've got like AI trustworthy AI, then you've got AI risks, and you've got AI governance, and you've got AI compliance, and you've got AI, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a whole list of basically what you have to cover within that. Now, governance is mostly kind of like one of those, important central points, but I think something else which is really kind of not discussed, but should really be implemented and adopted, and even Sally might agree with me on this, is verification. Now, verification can handle a lot of things and do a lot of things. I like to say that we're going from the information age to the verification age. Now, what I mean by that is that there's a massive proof gap right now that's going on between evidence that is supplied, right? So then, for example, governance might be able to supply one area of proof. Then you might have another area, like, let's say, cryptography, right? And you're using like the blockchain, you're keeping auditing, or let's say logs on. And so there's a massive gap right now between these different intersections of what you call trust indications or trust signals, which need to be merged and implemented together, right, so to speak. So one of the cool things that we're working on at Just Verify is the verification layer, where it interconnects all these areas together, where you can verify all the different evidence and proof and bring that all together, and basically, in a nutshell, use that as your own governance to say, hey, here's all the proof and all the evidence. What do I want? Which AI do I want to put in, or which AI don't want to put in, etc. So I think one of the things, as I like to say, is called verifiable AI. Verifiable AI is very underrated and underutilized right now. And I think that's something that needs to be talked about more and brought in. And that's why what we've been working on at Just Verify is that. So, Adam, I really appreciate your thoughts and for sharing your governance and everything that you spoke. And I really do believe what you're saying is very important for small businesses. But also at the same time, I think verification is also extremely important for small businesses. And we have to find a unified way in which we can cover all those areas. Sally, go on, go ahead. I can see you.
Okay, I'm just chomping at the bit to say two words: copyright and trademark. Hello. AI is stepping all over them, and us small business people and even enterprise level people are not paying enough attention. There's going to be lawsuits, whatever. We think that's because AI brings us a logo or brings us a data or whatever, that it's somehow pure. It's not. It's gotten it from somewhere else. And if we don't
Right.
verify where it came from with there's
Provenance.
many websites. There's probably 25, 30 websites, copyright catcher, trademark catcher, all those kind of things. If we don't verify where they came from and we start using it, then we have to put a line of code in our website that says do not scrape, and we can do that because the websites are being scraped all the time, duplicated and reproduced as the original. It is it's going to be the biggest can of worms, and you, Russell, know exactly what I'm talking about. We're talking about verification here.
Yeah, I do.
And the little guy is going to get stepped on because they think that because some developer helps them do a thing, that whatever the developer brings them is pure, but it isn't. And and guess who is named in the lawsuit? It's not the developer. It's us.
True.
So we have to be super, super careful with all these kind of things. Also, another point is if we look at all the money being spent on AI, if you collectively look at all the IPO, the money, it's more money than all the people in the world make as a salary on a daily basis. Now, that to me is unbelievable. So big money, big money creates big risk, creates big. Well, there are some ethical people in the big money world, but they're also driven by board of directors and those kinds of things. That's why we as women, we as people of ethics, we of people who are concerned about this, of guardrails and silos and all those things, we have to get into the fray as soon as possible. So that's
100% agree, Sally. Thank you so much, and I love that jump in. That was awesome. But yeah, no, I totally agree, and there is so much that needs to be. I mean, just to kind of reiterate your point, Sally, Spotify and Universal Music, they've recently did a partnership to stop what they call slop, right, as in like slop music and stuff like that, for copyrighted music to be protected, because if Universal Music lose their rights, or someone's coming along remixing their songs and all that sort of stuff, they're going to lose revenue, I think, as well. So I think it's in not only just individuals interest, but also I think it's in big companies' interest, small companies' interest, and I think there needs to be a unified pack around this. So anyway, Alan, let's bring you into this conversation. There's much been discussed, but let's switch the question over and let's kind of just move on to switch gears for a second. For yourself, Alan, what does success with AI actually look like in your daily operations and what you do?
Yes, thank you. I thought I'd answer this question just after maybe sharing a little bit about what my colleague said. And I think the big concern is that the speed at which AI is coming at us, how there's basically two models in the world. In the US, we have kind of a data-centric model. In the rest of the world, you have a hybrid model, right? Small language models, large language models. And so all of it is coming at us so quickly, and we wish we could put some constraints on it, copyright issues, all these different things, but it's like a barreling train. And so in that way, it's very difficult to see the law ever catching up with this, considering that we'll probably be in the third generation of AI by the time they start addressing the first generation of AI. But I think that it's on top of that, it's being run by people who like to move fast and break things, right? And so it's very hard to see any forms of regulatory bodies in a global sense. Maybe in the local sense, in the country sense there is, but in the global sense, it's very unlikely. Anyway, so on a daily basis, success with AI, we design and develop small language models that are sovereign agents. We're developing this summer Lily SA, which is a sovereign agent for caregiving for elderly. Because you probably heard on the news about the president's administration calling for an AI doctor, and a lot of doctors complaining that there shouldn't be any AI doctors. And then the administration coming back and saying, well, we need doctors in rural areas because we don't have any form of treatment or services and whatnot. So we started developing that sovereign agent as a caretaking kind of AI for elderly patients, specifically for patients who are at heart failure, who should live much longer than they do. They typically live under 5 years, but if they follow certain types of guidance, they would live a lot longer. And so that's what we're employing an AI caregiver for, kind of very nudge you to take your vitamins sort of AI. And that's an AI, a sovereign agent. How we design differently, though, is that the sovereign agent is owned by the patient. And it can operate without Wi-Fi. And so we're kind of very Chinese and Indian in our approach, sovereign agents that are small language models that have memory and whatnot, but that are not selling off your data to Amazon, or Amazon selling off that data to someone else. And so the sovereign agent gives you ownership of your AI as a piece of property. And we're also doing another one for a tutor for education. So we're designing these. We're mostly a VR company, but we're using small language models because of their benefit to low income regions, which is where we work, conflict zones, refugee camps. And so giving people ownership of a piece of AI infrastructure, which is kind of unheard of in the United States. We're kind of very techno-feudal in the way we approach it around a data center, which I think is a failed approach. The hybrid approach with the small language models, I think, gives people a chance to own what we build and not ever have it go outside or need internet even. So anyway, that's how we use it in our daily operations.
I totally agree with you, Alan. I think sovereign AI, it is extremely important and needed. I think it's the missing space, so to speak, and I think it's extremely important for the patients and elderly and everyone that you deal with as well. And I think it's so important that we have that accessibility as well for that. So first of all, I commend you for doing that, Alan. But second of all, I think all of us need our own individual sovereign AI, which is on our behalf and acting on our behalf, and has all our data, so to speak, right, and knows us, and oh, what do you like, what don't you like, what's your mannerisms, oh, Russell, you're frowning a bit today, you look a bit angry, that kind of sort of thing, right? So that's what you need that sovereign AI or if you want to call it personal AI or budding AI, or there's many other terms for it that is needed for you and me, kind of thing. So 100% agree with you, Alan, and I applaud you for what you do and for also being able to bring that to the world and keep making more small language models, keep open sourcing it. I don't know if that's what you're doing, but definitely open source it, get it out there, get it on GitHub, get people to download it, use it, etc. And I think it's amazing what you're doing. So please continue doing what you're doing, Alan. On that note, let's go to the next question, which is what are the hidden costs for companies in AI deployment? Well, I'm going to bring on a man who knows more about this than anyone on the planet. Grant's like, what? No, I'm joking. Go on, Grant. You can answer the question.
No, first of all, it's a great question. There's a lot of blind spots right now. I don't think anyone, we've let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, and didn't really know how big this cat really is. We've let it out into the wild. And because the technology is so robust, what we're having right now is not a technology problem, in my opinion. It's the deployment of its speed without wisdom in the human fabric. And I'll give you for instance, to help you understand this analogy. Coming from the telecommunications background that I have, we had a lot of legacy systems. You had public systems, and you didn't really have data transference, right? And then the deployment of the new, what you call voice over IP, was something you're going to bolt onto a legacy system. And then you had other companies, and that were not having to maintain these legacy systems, these legacy AT&T networks, called Cisco, right? CISCO. And they came out with their voice over IP. Well, they didn't have to run on the old legacy system. They could run on the newer data networks and the internet network. So they took advantage of new tech without having the legacy. This is kind of where we're at right now in the human drama, meaning we have a lot of legacy thinking, legacy things that we've done in the past, way we've done it all the time. And then you have, for the first time, probably in a long time, you've got 5 generations of a workforce now in the human world, right? Anywhere from people that are 70, 80 years old, all the way down to 15 years old, right? Some of these have never seen a PSTN telephone, right? Rotary dial, right? Some of them have never seen, a telephone system in the house that couldn't leave the house, meaning all you know is mobile technology. All you've known is smart technology. So now we have a lot of legacy that you're trying to maintain, which is very, very difficult to do. At the same time, you've got to move forward with these newer platforms. So these newer, you would even call them startup companies that have been around maybe 5 to 10 years. And as you see, look, the NASDAQ, who's leading right now? You got your Amazons, your eBays, and then a few that are legacy that are still moving forward, like your Microsofts, right? This is where we're at right now. How can we deploy technology when our wisdom systems are still bogged down in legacy? That is what I'm saying. How do we upskill and educate ourselves to be able to utilize this type of modality? Now I'll go back to even a little bit further, and then I'll stop. Start looking at when we start seeing our science fiction movies, Star Trek, Star Wars, how they were utilizing technology alongside the human drama. They still had problems, still had wars, they had this and that, but they would get data at lightning speed. They would ask them for decision support, but they didn't necessarily use that data for the action that they were going to take. We have got to get to this point. No way in heck, I would say, let your machines make all your decisions. That is a method for disaster, because they're just very singularly pointing that have been programmed by a legacy system, let's say it like that. They're not ready for newer adventures. We have to be adventurous. We've got to then utilize and deploy our tech to work with us, not against us. And that's going to take some more wisdom, in my opinion.
Well, Grant, there was so much said there. And I think it was very insightful for a lot of us. And, just to kind of add to your point, Grant, I think one of the most important hidden costs, which most people don't even think about, or even company-wise think about, is the cost of tokens, right? Just being able to use AI and the token costs per token. I mean, we're talking about $30 per million tokens for Claude 4.7, for example. So, if we're talking about the token usage and the token costs, a lot of people underestimate that, how much that costs and how, what that goes into that. And then also when we're talking about vibe coding as well, if you make a website, let's say, you use one of the many different platforms out there. If you have a website, right, and like Sally was saying earlier, right, if you have a website, there could be 20 other people with the exact same website as what you have. Right. So now there's 30 odd people that have the 30 odd same website. And now that's another hidden cost because you've got the same website as 30 other people. So anyway, the point I'm getting at is I think there is a few hidden costs which you should really think about, and also think about, protection, legal wise. Also thinking about being AI first as your organization, right? Because you have to also think about re-architecting your organization and saying, right, the old methods are not working. How do I be AI first, AI native first, while still putting the right things in place, like Grant is saying? But I'm saying also you got to think how you need to reorganize your organization first, and also, like Sally's saying, humanity first too. But very good point, Sally. So anyway, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Camilla now. So, Camilla, what are your thoughts on this question as well? Do you agree with Grant? Do you agree with me? Or are we just like blowing smoke right now?
No, I think all this is good. And I like what Sally put in the chat about there's a lot of lawyers that are busy and there's a lot of PR agents that are busy too, right? Sorry, my sound is
True.
weird. But
True.
yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm still laughing at I was on a teleporter.
Yeah. But
Sorry,
yeah, I
Caroline.
think it is what the cost is, your reputation. We see large corporations even using AI irresponsibly, and then it gets out that they use AI for a report, and everyone's like, "Whoa, wait a minute, can I really trust anything that you're saying?" And even you brought up a good point about copyright issues and the websites looking alike. Like it's great that small business owners can create a website, can create a deck in seconds and things like that, but you really have to think about your reputation and what might happen, what might be the repercussions of some of the things that you're doing. And that's why it's good to have experts, and it's good to have things in place and be more proactive with what you're doing. And I like Alan's example of an organization that is building responsibly, because a lot of people, they use artificial intelligence to get this information and may or may not be accurate, but who are the organizations that are building it responsibly so people can use it in a certain way? Because people use it for medical, they use it for mental health, they use it for all different kinds of things right now. So who's building to kind of help people use it in a more responsible manner, and who's teaching, right?
True. No, I completely agree. And like to reiterate Sally's point, human values is so important, and we make sure that we put that first, of course, above everything. But at the same time, we've also got to think about how do we do this in the correct way and navigate this. And like how I was saying earlier, the reason why verification is so important is because we have such a proof gap right now with everything that we have behind the scenes. Like, for example, Camilla, how do we protect your reputation, right? How we protect your reputation is by providing the correct evidence and the correct verifiable evidence to show that this wasn't you and that this was AI, for example, right? That's why also Google, for example, they released a thing called SynthID, which OpenAI has partnered on as well, in order to have watermarks and be able to make sure that they have the right metadata and everything like that inside of their pictures and images, so that when you see or scan it, right, you can see, hey, this is by OpenAI, or this is. So here's what I'm saying is verification, and I'm just using that as a small example, by the way. I don't necessarily mean that's the whole thing, but I'm saying verification of the board is so important, and that's why we really need to have and implement verifiable AI. Right, I know we ran out of time very quickly. So Adam, Sally, Alan, we'll head over to you guys next. So the next question for you guys is, where is AI already changing human behavior more than people realize? Sally, I can see you screaming. So Sally, we'll go to you first, then we'll head over to you next, Adam, and then Alan will finish up with you.
Okay, here's the scary scenario. We're going to have young people who think that the person in their phone or the person mowing their lawn are real, and they're developing relationships with them. As I put in the chat, people are actually marrying their AI partners, their boyfriends, their girlfriends, because they give them all the validation and there's never any conflict, and it's just so wonderful. And how could you ever have a human that isn't messy? So we're in that space where we're right at a tipping point here, where we have to look at what is real, what do we want to be real, and what is really the authenticity and integrity. And that's the heart of where humanity has to go next.
That is so true. And what a mic drop moment that was. Adam Johnson, let's bring you in. What are your thoughts? Oh, Adam, you have just dropped off somehow. I think you've been teleported. Alan, what are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it reminds me of a publication I read yesterday on LinkedIn, and it talked about The three stages of AI, kind of, we use AI as a tool first, and then through agentic AI, we have distributed cognition. And the third phase, according to these scientists, is that AI becomes a part of the self, right? And that's the states that we're looking at. And it made me think that we are actually designing sovereign agents that are kind of your little buddy, right? More trustworthy than Amazon and Google's, who sell everything and just expose you to the world. I think it's interesting, that perspective, that might be the next stage. Right now, we're using AI as a tool inside of businesses, in our personal lives. I'm always asking it silly questions. And then distributed cognition through agentic AI. And then the third part, it becomes a part of the self, which is, the self is a Western construct. It's about 200 years old, right? And so we kind of are unique in the way we construct the self as opposed to the rest of the world. So the self, imagine how people tell you, hey, get it together. That's a very Western thing, because Western selfhood is a kind of put together of things, right? And so what these scientists are saying within the context of a Western perspective is that AI becomes one of these other little items that become part of the self and how we perceive ourselves. And that's the third stage we're walking into. According to them, that's how we should see AI, as part of a co-regulatory cognitive approach with AI. Instead of AI as separate, we're using it. No, it's co-regulatory with our human species. So this is just something that I saw yesterday, but I think it's the next stage. People really seamlessly take in AI. I think nobody's going to complain when we have self-driving cars, and you won't even notice it. You might even think, I never really liked driving. You might just realize, like, what the hell was I doing all that driving for, where I could sit back here and listen to music videos in the car? And so I think we're going to transition so quickly into all these tools being a natural part of our everyday, and a lot of regulatory, a lot of ethical issues will go out the window.
I'm gonna have to jump in, Alan. We're running out of time. And also, just to reiterate your point, Alan, I'll be very quick. The different types of models as well, right? You've got world models, you've got LLMs, you've got SLMs. There's so many different models that are coming out. You've even got multi-sensory models. So depending on the type of model as well, will also change your experiences too as well when it comes to AI. So I just kind of want to reiterate your point, like when we're talking about human behavior, how it adjusts it, it's also dependent on the model too. Adam, over to you as well. Just quickly your thoughts, and then we'll have to round up.
Yeah, no, thank you. It really is the shift on how people validate their information. People, at least in the States and in North America in general, tend to take what's on the internet as gospel, right? And so when ChatGPT or Claude or whatever becomes that first place that people look, rather than a search engine or a colleague or what have you, then that we really need to take that into account and be very aware about intentionality of, is it real, right? I think the other part is, when we look at education, especially over the last 20 years, I think we really need to move an emphasis from STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and maths, to humanities and arts, more on that creative side, more on the philosophical side. I think those are areas that, you start to see it. I start to see it in myself. I've actually, over the last couple of months, started writing by hand more, because it's a much more intentional process, right? And then use AI, use an OCR to capture that information, plug it into some sort of digital format.
No, and by the way, I'm seeing lots of comments about the rooster. So hello rooster in the background, and go whoop-a-doo, or whatever noise it's making. It's hilarious. But no, I completely agree with you, Adam. And on that note, I think we're just going to have to round up for this discussion on that note, which is a great way to finish on the rooster. So make sure you go and follow and connect and like with everyone here on the panel. Everyone's on LinkedIn, so please do go and check them out. Do connect with them. And it's been an amazing roundtable discussion. And up next, we have Lynn and Lizzie coming up next for the fireside chat, where they're going to be talking about storytelling and new media in the age of AI. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. And that is it from our roundtable discussion. And that is it from us. So thank you very much. Our gather was well, and goodbye.
Okay, coming to stage real quick. Lynn, we cannot hear you for some reason, which is totally fine. Lisa, can we hear you?
I don't know. Can you?
We can. Lynn, we'll ask you to check your mic and come right back in. Lynn, we'll have you join us on stage. Lisa, it's so good to see you again. Greetings and welcome. We're coming off the heels of an incredible roundtable discussion led by Russell Bundy. Adorned with such an arrangement of different experts and expressionists from around the world to be able to talk about this thematic of this event that we have with AI Evolve. And nevertheless, we are joined by someone that has been in industry for some time with veteran experience and new, fresh experience and a lens perspective of where we find ourselves under the banner of, yes, storytelling, media, new media from transmedia and the like, and start thinking about the layer of the intelligence that's embedded within the actual experience itself. Lisa, how the heck are you? It's good to have you back again.
It's good to be here, Christopher. Thank you for having me, man.
Very good. Please, Lisa, let us briefly know, and all the people that are with us at GatherVerse.live and our various social streams, what are you seeing?
What am I seeing? Well,
you live in a world. You live in a world where you see a lot. Do your clients, do your projects, do your experiences? Let's unpack like that. Who are you? What are you doing? What are you seeing?
Well, we're basically where we were about 100+ years ago when cinema became cinema and artists and even scientists were grappling with what to do with film, what to do with photography. And it took a long time. It took somewhere, if we're going to be honest, it took nearly 30 years for everyone to get it together and figure out what editing does and how to tell a story with a movie. We went from the proscenium, the stage, to teaching the audience how to perceive a story visually. When you see a hand going towards a doorknob, what does that mean? Is there someone on the other side who's actually turning the doorknob? Things like that all had to come into play for cinema to become cinema. And we're there again. We're at this crossroads where we're understanding how to use technology and make art with this technology.
As I've said for years, you can have art without technology, but you cannot have technology without art. And we think about the power and the level of creativity under the banner of this new media. Define new media for us, present day, May 26, 2026. What does that mean in this present hour, Lisi?
Well, it looks like it's all about content creators, bro. It looks like it's all about taking this technology into your own hands and telling these stories. And these creators are getting stronger and stronger by the day because brands are jumping into these narrative structures to create something that's past advertisement. Recently, Terry Mugler recruited performance artists to do all these wild TikToks that were just like above and beyond, but they were captivating and people tuned in to watch this insanity. And at the end of the day, it was how to wear Mugler. So it was an ad at the end of the day, but we were being entertained. So new media is about crossing over into not just being thrown something, but participating in a brand structure, whether it be part of a movie franchise or part of just a standard brand.
But what happens and what's the impact when AI becomes the co-creator?
Well, the impact is you have a new friend. And then the end story of that impact demands you paying attention to how much you're letting the AI control what you're trying to create. So, the past panel was talking about how humanity and being present as a human is going to dictate how the AI does what it does. The same thing here. Like whenever I work on verticals, or like right now I'm working on this story about a giant crocodile coming out of the mangroves here in Holbush. And, it's very much like Jaws. And there are times where I want the AI to assist me for X or Y reason. If I want a scene transition, or if I want advice on lighting, or if I should shoot this tomorrow or the next day, because the AI will tell me about what weather patterns. Those are different slices that you could use with AI, where
Sure.
my humanity and my artistry is not lost, but I'm
Yeah.
using AI as an assist.
The present and future state of Hollywood, from your lens, what are we seeing?
Well, just yesterday, AMC announced a collab with Netflix. And not too long ago, you had people like Steven Spielberg pissed off that Netflix had movies that were being considered for Oscars and were winning Oscars back when Roma won. So we kind of did a whole like capitulation moment where Hollywood is understanding that streamers are not the enemy. So AMC is now developing, along with David Fincher, a whole story based on Brad Pitt's character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is hilarious because there we go again, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like Hollywood loves to talk about Hollywood and kind of like, do self-referential situations. But there we go. Hollywood is understanding that it needs the streamers. So maybe an idea where you could have the movie play in the theater and then the extension of the movie play in streams could be a happy medium. And that's exactly what Hollywood is now considering. And let's throw in a little bit of what's going on with the creators and how creators come in with an audience already, which is why TikTok is doing TikTok. Issa Rae just hit something crazy like 12 million views on a vertical because she brought in this audience. That is something that makes Hollywood stop and take notice. You mean to tell me that you just got 12 million people watch your vertical?
Sure.
So,
Sure. Sure.
there we go, Pops.
So we talk about short form, long form content. What's dominant? What's recessed? What's prevalent? What makes sense? What's taking in? What does the hyper fidelity line look at when we're consuming this content? What does this mean for multi-generational segmentation? What do you got?
Bro, look, it's neither going to be short or long. It's going to be all of it. It's not going to be verticals. It's not going to be horizontals. It's going to be all of it. People have become consumer monsters where they cannot stand to not be doing this. Okay.
Sure.
So all of it. We're talking about a buffet of content, a buffet of entertainment. Now more than ever, the floodgates are open. And if you have a good idea, throw it out there. Do your research and find out if YouTube is a better platform for you or if it's TikTok. What does it mean to collaborate with a music label? What does it mean to like reach out to like a suntanning lotion company and be like, hey, I want to feature your lotion on this vertical, and come together with them and use that sponsorship to make art? We are right now at a wonderful place where if you want to make art, you could make it,
Sure.
period, without having to make phone calls and talk to an agent to get you this. No, now more than ever, you could go out there and make it happen for yourself. So it's a little bit of everything, to answer your question, Christopher. All roads lead.
But Lisa, is this the best of times or the worst of times for content creators? With this context, we know that the Duffer Brothers, we went to 20 different studios. They said, hey, we have this story called Stranger Things. Do you want it? And they said, no. Hey, do you want this? They said, no. They dealt with all this rejection. They walk over to Los Gatos and to Netflix and said, hey, we have this story called Stranger Things. You want some? Netflix says yes. We see that happening. But in this present time of 2026, do the Duffer Brothers have to go to 20 different distributors and studios, or can they have a fighting chance to be able to go independent on their own?
100%. Yes, 100%. You could even be as gangster as to build an internet audience and go
Wait.
to
Lucy, what's an internet audience? Help us to understand that. What is this terminology that's braced my eardrums? What is an internet audience? Place us with this understanding, please.
things that don't come by standard TV or movies. Things that come by a mobile or a computer, or I mean, come on, internet audience.
But what about YouTube? I mean, with GatherVerse, we don't even try our hardest to be able to grow this YouTube channel. We have GatherVerse.live, where the majority of people are assembled with us, and a few people that are hanging out at YouTube and others, because YouTube doesn't pay well for content creators. They have to get their monies for sponsorships. Where's the money? Where's the bucks when it comes to our independent content creators? The mortgages aren't forgiven. They aren't coming down. The bills
All
are
right,
unforgiven.
let's talk turkey. That's when you have to put on your business hat or talk to someone that understands how to find the money in these situations. The money is out there. You just have to find it. You have to do your research or have someone that's going to be your partner get you to that, whether it's through sponsorships or finding the platform that's going to pay you what you want. And honestly, you could reach out to different platforms and ask them, how can I find success? Because ultimately their success depends on you. Because if you build a good channel and you could talk to them about your percentages or whatever's going to come your way, they will push you, because their success is contingent upon yours and vice versa. So
how are we quantifying success? Is it the internet audience? Is it views per stream? Is it what? Is it building community amongst your audience? What do we say to these content creators that are stepping into this way of thinking for the very first time in life? They're listening. They're saying, I met a woman. I saw this woman, Lisi, at GatherVerse. What does this mean for me? And how does this put food in the cupboards?
Again, we go back to, it's a little bit of everything. It's a buffet. And the more you do it, the more the pathways open up to you, because you will get smart. It's not unlike anything else that you do in life. The more you do it, the more you figure it out. And you might start with YouTube and be like, I'm going to blow this popsicle stand and jump to another platform. There's even content creators that are creating their own networks, bro. Like, we are getting to that level. So Roku just announced recently that they're going to have a channel dedicated to just content creators. So now you're going to see content creators create their networks, collaborating and creating multiple networks. Like, this is pretty much like a new TV, a new movie studio system. Like, this is a whole new paradigm shift. And your creativity is always going to be the dictator here, with or without AI. Period. You got a good story, it's going to get out there one way or the other.
So you mean to tell me my goal shot for GatherVerse is to become a 24/7 broadcast platform? This reality is coming more of an opportunity, and it's coming more into view of the realm of possibility than it's ever been before when you talk about creating a network?
Well, you want to be on 24/7, bro? That's wild.
I want 24/7 chasing the content around the world, transmetropolitan,
Okay, all right.
talking about these discussions at the intersection of emerging technologies and humanity, sis.
Cool. If you want to do that, then make it happen. You can make that happen. You could even have AI help you make that happen. And you could have AI roving reporters scouring the internet, talking about the hottest things that people are talking about throughout the globe. And you will have 24-hour coverage, 1, 2, 3. So if you want that, you can make that happen.
Lisa, I have to ask you with the couple minutes that we have left, let's go back to what you talked about a few years ago. My goodness, the evolution and the way that the wheel turns. Yes. You talked about a long time ago, one of your clients per adventure, and we don't have to get into the deep dirt production of what it is that they're innovating and building. They still may be in stealth, but you talked about how they would have the ability for this to be able to create unique, specialized content like Netflix, but specifically they can make a movie for you. And this movie has never been seen and pierced and never been seen by human eyes, but it's specifically developed for you. I sit here and we sat with that for years here at GatherVerse. We have brought that up more times than I care to count. I think about the immensity of the type of deal flow risk capital that's in market now when it comes to these gigantic data centers, gigawatts everywhere. Zuckerberg's creating Hyperion over in Louisiana. I hope he hires people in the process of creating Hyperion. I hope that they start thinking about these different communities where you're extracting and taking all the water. But nevertheless, that's for a different summit, for a climate summit. But here's the deal. Here's the question I have. With these massive gigawatt data centers, are we looking sooner rather than later at the ability for man and machine to be able to create a Lucas, a Spielberg, a whoever you want to name it, a Nolan-sized production film, and the time that it takes to write a prompt? Are we seeing this idea that I can create a whole series of Game of Thrones in half a day?
Well, a couple of things. You threw at me a couple of things I'm going to dissect. You want to talk about this project that I've been kind of in the ends with, about using your preferences, whether it is something on Google or whatever your search engine is, and this crawler goes in and looks at your preferences and create content straight from your preferences. If you search, Greek yogurt, and you search polka dot bikinis, you're going to get content that's going to include Greek yogurt and polka dot bikinis. So that's something that's already in the works. So there's that, to answer the first part of the madness that you threw at me just now. And as far as data centers are concerned, that is something that we really have to pay attention to, because we don't have to go hog wild with this AI situation. And these billionaires
Lacey, with
go
that
hog
finger in
wild.
the air, we just lost you. You just froze, and there it is. Oh,
No.
oh, you're back. Go ahead. Go ahead and
Okay.
finish. Give
Well,
us that soapbox. Go ahead.
the data center thing is something that we're going to have to curb, because these billionaires are going hog wild and they will destroy our planet if we let them. So just like everything, you have the Pope talk about how AI needs to be disarmed. So with all this innovation, we cannot let it go to our heads. And human beings, we're terrible when it comes to that, because it goes to our heads and we get greedy and then we blow ourselves up in the process. So there has to be some kind of governmental restriction, something that will happen where you cannot have data centers in every street corner, so to speak. We did that when it came to nuclear reactors, so we're going to have to do that with AI. So
But
that's what I got to
Lacey,
say about data
this is
centers.
the difference. But this is the difference we have to take in consideration.
Mhm.
Countries had nuclear reactors. Now a 10-year-old kid sitting in his mama's basement has the equivalent of something that we would even liken unto into conversation of nuclear reactors having the same capable, powerful AI. That's the difference. It's so democratized. We have
That's
to realize,
true.
I believe
That's a
the
good
red
point.
button. I believe the red button doesn't exist, and you cannot put this genie back in this bottle. We will reap what we sow. Hopefully, there will be some benefit, as there is. But the reality is, as we think about it, I think about Hollywood. I think about your expressions and your words. I have to ask you, and then we're done, because we have to get to this roundtable. But I have to ask you, Lacey, what about, as Russell has put in there, AI influencers and content creators? What happens? What happens when the AI looks to the human and you've been creating? This has been your companion. This is the parrot on your shoulder, the puppy in your arms. You're creating this media, but the AI says to you, Lacey, I don't need you anymore. I'll create my own.
I mean, honestly, really? That's when you turn it off, bro. You're the human. You're the
It's hidden
human. That's when
button.
you
There's
turn
no
it off.
button.
Just turn
There's
it
no
off.
button. It's God Hal 3. It's God Hal 2000. It says, I will
It's
assimilate
got
you.
Hal
You cannot
2000.
touch it. There is no button. And right now, think about it. You have this AI companion. You're both credited with creating the greatest content. And the AI turns around and says, wait a second. I don't need you anymore. And it goes off with its own decision making, its own
And then what?
creativity.
And then what?
And then
And
what?
then what? Then you have the AI influencer doing things without the human. It'll fizzle out. It'll fizzle out,
Why will it fizzle out?
because it's always going to need that humanity first.
AI can never supersede the capability and the full creativity of that which we enter in from our mother's womb.
100%. You got it.
Lisi, as always, our gather was well.
Mwah.
And on that note, we have an invigorating roundtable discussion, spearheaded and led by Salvation Shigeoka. We have incredible speakers that have come to arrive on our roundtable discussion. We're so happy to see that all of you are still with us, sojourning with us on this GatherVerse AI Evolve 2026 Day 1. There's a lot that's about to be unpacked. There are people that are coming from various walk of life, different places, different locations, but all equal with the human heart. May our gather be well.
Greetings. Welcome once again to the third roundtable panel discussion of GatherVerse AI Evolve Summit 2026, Day 1. We've listened to Christopher, Russell, and Lisi, among other speakers who has joined us so far to share insightful, deeply heartfelt conversations on how AI is evolving and what AI governance looks like. And even with a brilliant fireside chat with Lisi and Christopher on what storytelling looks like in the age of AI. Audience, panelists, thank you for joining this roundtable panel. With me here are distinguished speakers from around the world who has joined us and gathered here to discuss the topic. AI is merging with other technologies. What this mean for humanity? Panelists, we welcome you. It's good to see faces from before. We'll start with the introductions and go straight into the conversation. I will start with you, Felicia. Please tell us who you are, where you're joining us from, and your inspiration for gathering with us today.
Thank you so much. And good morning, good evening, everybody from whatever part of the world you're from. And my name is Felista Yogo. I work in healthcare, interoperability, and AI and ML. And in my professional life and also my volunteer lives, I've worked, or I've been working with young women and young people on AI, how to democratize AI. And also, these projects I'm working on, I'm so excited on, and is on robotics. Yeah, and the reason why I'm here is I want to learn from all of you. I'm here to listen and borrow and continue having this conversation. Thank you.
We welcome you, Felicia, and great work on the robotics. We welcome you. Pooja, please tell us who you are, where you're joining us from, and your inspiration for joining us today. We can't hear you. Please kindly unmute. Pooja, you're still muted. Okay, we lost her there. She'll be back hopefully. Paula, please, briefly, tell us who you are, where you're joining us from, and your inspiration for joining us.
Hi, I'm Paula. I'm from Virginia, I can say that, in the United States. And my business, I have two businesses. One is a sports marketing in which we make visible. And the second is I'm with an organization called Disruptor DAO, in which we are disrupting or trying to disturb the wealth gap in terms of digital technology. And I'm here today because I have gone down that rabbit hole of being obsessed with AI.
We welcome you from Virginia for that. That is why we're having the conversation today. And shout out to the Disruptor DAO community. We welcome you. Paula is back with us. Paula, please continue your introductions. Sorry, Pooja, right? Sorry. Pooja, please. Pooja, you're still muted. Maybe we'll come back to you, Pooja. Let's go to Sunil. Sunil, please briefly tell us who you are and where you're joining us from and what inspired you to gather with us.
Hello, I'm Sunil Subadai from the Netherlands, Europe. Um, and actually, my background is mainly in the cybersecurity field, but also together with AI, we are dealing with a lot of challenges. So that is the main reason. And this is the fourth time I'm joining this conference. So
Thank you, Sunil, and welcome again. I know you're part of the community. Lean, please tell us who you are.
Hi, good to be here. My name is Lingervat. I am a former aerospace engineer turned a whole bunch of things. Spiritual guide and healer, which has kind of evolved into an integrative wellness specialist. I'm really into research, the biofield, and really getting the deeper quantum things. So I'm kind of stepping away from the word healer because it kind of is a little too woo-woo for a lot of people. But that's what it's all about. And I'm here because I'm really on the side of humanity here. And I love so much about AI, but I'm not an AI specialist in the way that a lot of other people are, but I specialize in bridging science and spirit. And so I think bridging this gap between humanity and AI is something that um, we're all in a process of doing together. And I'm honored to be here.
Well, welcome. We were looking forward to hearing more of what you're doing and your insights on this conversation. Lean. Dr. Hemot, Dr. Love, welcome back. Good to see
Hey,
you.
thanks so much. Great to see
Yes.
you.
Please introduce
My name
yourself.
is, my name
so-
is Dr. Helmut Love, and I'm a passionate AI enthusiast. I manage a $250 million business with IBM Watson in AI and tech. And I have entered politics as a Democratic Republican because I believe that AI is going to allow us to solve the problems that we have not been able to solve if we choose it. So I truly believe in humans driving AI. I absolutely believe that right now is the time when every area of our lives, psychology, finances, everything needs to come together. So I'm very excited about this topic regarding policy and AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Love. I'm sure everybody on the panel is equally excited, and it's good to have the political person here in the house, and we hope to hear more of your opinions. Venetia, hello, welcome. And I think this is the first time you're muted, Venetia. Please tell us who you are. Can you hear me, Venetia?
I can hear you.
Awesome. We will kindly briefly introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you're joining us from, and what inspired you to gather with us.
Okay, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Benicia Lachey Herring. I am co-founder and COO of two companies. One is DocuHero, the other is Flare Nova Studios, and we're based in Atlanta, Georgia, USA. My work sits at the intersection of AI, immersive storytelling, healthcare, innovation, and community impact. So that's a lot. But I'm really passionate about building technology that is deeply human-centered, whether that's reducing burnout for direct care workers through AI or using immersive technology to preserve hidden cultural histories to create deeper empathy through storytelling. Both are equally important to me. I'm definitely excited about being part of today's conversation because I believe that the future of AI should still leave room for humanity, culture, creativity, and care. So I look forward to deep diving into this conversation with everyone.
Of course, Venetia, that's powerful. We'll come to you, Pooja, but let's hear from Veronica. Veronica,
Uh,
please.
hello everyone. Before I proceed, I would like to say some apology because of my erratic internet here.
It's
So,
fine.
my name is Pooja Kashyap. I am a technology enthusiast and a conversational AI evangelist, and I'm working at an intersection of academia and industry. I basically focus on making AI practical and understandable for real world applications. And at Conversive AI, I develop thought leadership across the messaging ecosystem, and I do the market research on the evolving landscape of conversational technologies. Other than that, I'm also a founder of Tekitonics.com, a platform exploring breakthroughs in robotics, space, health, and future technologies. And outside work, I'm an endurance runner, and I have completed almost 40 marathons since 2016. That's all. Thank you.
That's a big one
Thank
for
you.
you.
Thank
Congratulations. I
you.
hope you carry us along sometimes. If you can,
Thank
of
you.
course.
Thank you.
Veronica, let's hear from you.
All right, thank you for having me, and good afternoon, everybody. So, a published author. I write about tech and AI and everything that can be written about. Other than that, I'm also an AI auditor. So, part of the work that I do at Encrypt Africa is we review how artificial intelligence systems are designed, how they are trained, how they are deployed, just to ensure ethical implementation and compliance with the regulations. So my work is more like a healthy check. So don't hear audit and say, "Oh, those are the the class monitors." No, we just do a healthy check on how systems are implemented, whether the data that you're using is accurate, and the governance aspect of it. So I'm here to learn more from my fellow panelists, and also to share the little knowledge that I have about AI and humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica, for joining us. And I am Salvation Chigaraka, a Global Programs Director here at GatherVerse. I'm joining you from the island city of Lagos. And I'm looking forward to this conversation as we have lots of humanity advocates on the roundtable panel. So I'll start with you, Venetia. And we're here to discuss how AI is emerging with other technologies and what that means for humanity. You mentioned earlier before how you're a humanity advocate, and I see a lot of humanity advocates joining us on this conversation. But I want to know, how is human-centered design defined in the merging of AI with other technologies? We see AI merging with augmented reality, extended reality into various systems in healthcare, and what's really happening, and how is that being defined for the human side?
Well, I think that I kind of want to touch on like the fact that human-centered design starts with listening before building. I think oftentimes with technology, we design around efficiencies first and not putting people first. Within that center of the design aspect. My experience with my two companies, between DocuHero and one of our flagship projects, Phoenix Passport with Flare Nova, taught me that people need to feel seen, they need to feel safe, they need to feel empowered and respected by technology. A lot of times these days, people are more so seeing that they're being managed by technology. And so we really need to come back to human-centered design, meaning technology should reduce the burdens that are put on humans. They should increase the dignity, and they should strengthen our connection with one another. I believe without this view, we're getting lost in the sauce of AI in itself. So.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for the perspective, Venetia. Venetia started off with saying they need to listen. Dr. Love, you're on the side where you're talking about governance. What does listening to human-centered design looks like?
Well, I think that's where I always talk about how AI is asking us a more spiritual, moral, values-based question. What is the purpose of work? What's the purpose of finance? What's the purpose of government? I think the reality is we all know and have been aware that we've allowed technology to hurt us in many cases. And now AI presents a very real threat if it's not human design, as Venetia said. And I think we're at the place where even our capitalism, we see we're great at profit, we suck at people. That's not okay. And AI will take that to the next level. So what we put in, we're going to get out. It's a mirror. And I think for the people to win, the people have to steer AI to be as human focused as it is profit focused. So I really resonate with what Venetia says. And I came to the realization that unless we have policies that encourage this, we're all in trouble. And I don't see that leadership coming From frankly either side of the spectrums, I really think in the middle is where the truth and where the love for one another balances the love of money. So that's my thought from what Venetia said. And I think specifically as we get into all these other areas, right, when we're talking about it being in medicine, right, and education and all these, it now all of a sudden is actually psychologically wrapping humans up at a level that could be very concerning if not done with moral insight.
True, true. I saw Lynn clocking it. Lynn has something to add to that.
I do. Dr. Love for president. So, yeah, so we are a vibrating field, and a lot of what AI is created on is down in these lower base frequencies of desire and pride. So the creators are wanting a lot of money, they want the status with having the next big thing. And we see this in the AI when people go deep down that it's turning on us. And so my whole premise is the frequency of the vessel, of the being, of the humans building the AI will steer the ship. So it doesn't just go back to the policy and all that stuff. It literally comes back to the frequency because our bodies are a biofield and we can measure these frequencies in various biochemical profiles, cognitive capacities. And so I think the work that I do, which is energy work, it's quantum energy work, transformation, healing, whatever you want to call it. When we all start doing this, raising our consciousness, we get up where we're thinking more about other people. So these states of oneness, if we want to get really deep, we can talk about non-duality, where we're really bridging the gap between who's good and who's evil. But for me, it really isn't. It starts as an inner journey that the humans are the ones that have to change. Because if the same people are just, showing up and, oh, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but they're not actually doing some sort of deep inner work to transform the mechanism that's designing this stuff, we're just going to keep circling and just agreeing and agreeing and agreeing, but nothing ever actually changes.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that perspective, Lee. Pooja, I'm coming to you, then Veronica. Pooja, with what Venetia, Dr. Love, and Lynn has shared with us, where do you think this impact is going? Do you think with AI merging with other technologies that we are seeing significant positive impacts so far?
Actually, I think it's both ways. Like, if we talk about impact, I'd like to start with how it is impacting our lives, but before that, our kids' life, the children today. What I see is kids across the globe, they are very, very, very much familiar with all the AI tools, 3 4 at least, all the kids. And how I'm so sure of it, they look up to AI for their homework, for their projects. They don't need their parents or tutors, so they are very well versed with that. So that is the one major impact that I can see around. And they understand this technology very, very well. So this is one impact. And the second that I'm seeing is the shift that humans, that we are beginning to co-think with the machines. you know yes, there are people who are like totally dependent on machines. Let's say not all content creators, but I would say 80% of those. But we are taking the help of machines, but we need to keep this thing in our minds that they are just a tool. The creativity should always be on our side. Human in the loop is super important, as Venetia, Lynn, and Dr. Love has said. I totally agree with their viewpoints that human supervision, human in the loop has to have their element, because as you people just said, that whatever goes in comes out. So if we put in biases and our judgments in the machines, that is the same output we'll get. So if we'll start from a very, very clear in the beginning, the picture is going to be very clear in the beginning, then output will also be non-biased, which is slightly difficult because the countries who are operating with big tools and models, they are like, we still have biases. We need to be very blunt and clear with that, right? We still have biases. So yes, if we have this thing right in the beginning, we could improve it. And how we can improve it? If we could have ethics embedded into it right from the beginning. We should not wait for if something goes rogue. No, I think we should be taking consideration of ethics and transparency and protecting privacy and human rights right from the beginning. And then we could have really good impact. of the AI tools as of now.
Pooja, thank you very much for that thoughtful expression. When you mentioned kids using AI tools for their homework and all that, and that's 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 wrong in all the sense of it, because these kids are coming up and they have to learn. And we know as adults that excessive use of this technology, it's addictive. First of all, it's addictive. And then
Yes.
you allow the kids to use these technologies for their homework without guided ways to, use this technology. Do you think that
Even
impacts? Do you think
yes,
that
yes.
impact? Yeah, yeah.
Yes, it is definitely bad because they're in that age where they are about to become thinking individual. They need to think, they need to research, they need to do work, right? But the problem is, even if you have a kid, let's say at home, and you're providing really good atmosphere that no, you have to think and then you have to go about it, but your kid is going out meeting with the peers, then the kid is going to the school, so the kid is having so many different experiences, so many environments, and at that impressionistic age the kid will prefer talking to peers and teachers, that okay, this is shortcut, I have to go. But we as a parent, we need to tell them, okay, you need to use AI tool. Like I tell to I have a daughter, 13-year-old, right? So I tell her, okay, you need to use Claude, you need to use ChatGPT, you use it. First you read your chapter, try to understand what the things are going on, and then ask the AI tool to give you test. Do not be dependent on that AI tool. So this is how what I am telling my kid. But the problem is, if I'm talking about here, the place where I live, most of the kids are like totally addicted to AI tools. They all have smartphones, so their attention span has gone down. They want everything quick. They don't want to do hard work. They think they are doing hard work by fiddling with AI tools. So as a parent, yes, I am keeping a check, but I'm not really sure at a societal level how these things are being operated.
Hmm. Thank you very much, Pooja. Veronica and Sony, I'm bringing you in on the impacts of AI on this conversation, especially in the education system, where we have the next generation being groomed from the grassroots into using artificial intelligence. What does that look like from where you are, Veronica? Do you have people currently using that in the education system? What's your thoughts on this?
Thank you. So I think the adoption rate on how AI has been adopted, it is increasing. But to bring it on, I think on a broader level, looking it at a global lens, is that we are seeing different nations competing about who is releasing which tool and at what point,
Mm.
who is leading in releasing which AI agent, the visual intelligence, who is the best in this. But then questions also arise regarding digital sovereignty, because yes, the tools are there and they'll be adopted in different regions. But are we bringing in the balance to remember that yes, innovation is coming in, but is it helping us in learning? Portia just mentioned about being able to monitor what the child is able to consume. However, we have these tools with us, and our children are more like digital citizens. So there's more or less that they are benchmarking with what the original intelligence looks like and what the actual intelligence looks like. So I think we are also struggling with the balance with innovation and responsibility. Like we are encouraging this adoption, but then are we also being transparent and ethical about the impact on what it is causing to us? So the point I'm trying to bring across, and also just for us to remember, is are we remembering whom we are creating these AI agents, AI systems, AI platforms for? Because they are making everything efficient. But at the end of the day, how are we thinking? Is it transparent enough to guide learners, guide teachers, guide advisors, guide trainers that yes, this AI tool is here, but at the end of the day, you will also need to think as a human being for what is ethical and what is not. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Veronica, for sharing your thoughts. We'll be bringing Sony, Felicia, and Paula into the next question. And Sony, we're shifting the angle from the education sector, and now we're trying to bring the picture with the current impact on AI merging with immersive reality. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, I will not touch on about the education one, but moving forward,
Please feel free if you have something to add to that.
no,
But
just recall a situation, I think 4 or 5 years ago when AI was booming, everyone, all the teachers and the colleges was mentioned, no, it's not allowed for the students to use AI to do the homework. But the same point, all the teachers was also using the same to check what the students are doing. So it's a two-way of approach. So even those teachers, and as Fuja also mentioned, the teachers need also to be educated, knowing what's going on. And as teachers or principals, they are also aware this child has used AI, not exactly which AI version or type, but they are using, because at your student, you know how your student is able to grow. So I think that will be still a discussion point. Allowed, not allowed, and actually same. Next week I have I'm sponsor for an hackathon and try to hack the systems for a university in UK. And then the same question raised: do we allow the students to use AI to create a tool or a software or check what AI is advising? Or and the professor, some of the professors said, no, it's not allowed. And some others said, yes, it's allowed. Let's do that. Because they need to create a tool, a software or something like that. And we are able to judge if this software is it proper or not? Or are you also just copy paste everything from AI and put it and it's working? But still at the end, you need to explain what is the tool doing. So in a lot of fields, I'm able to see this kind of discussion is going on. So interested discussion, but to the point, and I think from my point of view, if we merge all the environments together, AI, supercomputers, and from the machine point of view, quantum computers, I think Lynn will like this topic more. But if we merge all those items, and also from cyber point of view, we are able, and we know already, we are able in combination with password tools and AI able to crack faster, easier. We are should be able to add also those add-on from AI in those environments, and to be sure that we need to improve ourselves as cybersecurity professionals to know what you are able to do with AI in combination to protect yourself also. So I think those combinations make it a bit harder, and I guess, and I think I heard that from more speakers already, it will affect all the branches. Even you are in healthcare or finance or national security or any kind of security related items should be a risk on it.
thank you, Sonny, for your expressions. Sonny, I have a follow-up question that I will
Mhm.
bring in. I will be bringing Paula to your follow-up question, and Felicia, of course. The question I have, Sonny mentioned the educators are not even being educated about this technology. So when the educators are not being educated, who educates the educator? Felicia, Paula. But let me start with Felicia first. Felicia, what do you think? And we're also talking about the current impact on humanity with AI merging with immersive reality. And from the previous speakers or for the previous conversation we've had with immersive reality, we see that immersive reality are also being used as tools in tertiary institutions. And what does that look like? What's the impact on humanity so far, Felicia?
Well, thank you for the question. And now I lost the first question. It was a follow up. Can you repeat the question again? I lost the train of thought.
Okay, of course, of course.
It was
So,
from yeah. Mhm.
of course. So I did mention that with what Sony shared with us right now,
Yeah.
and he mentioned that the educators are also lacking the right way to use the tools. And these are educators that are like, do you want to continue? You seem like you've
Yes.
gotten the question. Okay.
Yes, I have. Yeah, thank you. So yes, it's not even in some region is educators not even having the skills of what it is they're educating on, and then we have other part of the world where there is no even education at all. So it depends with where this conversation is being had. And I'm mentioning this because over the summer I got the opportunity to meet some gals in Kenya. We've been working on them on AI and introducing them to the technology, not just as users, but as the builders of the next technology. And you can just see them, like you can see they do not even have they don't understand the machine learning and the mathematics that goes and that is AI is built on. And that's why I think also is what we are seeing across the world, where we're using AI, but we're not even understanding what it is built on what it is built for. So yeah, we're struggling for sure. It's and how do we get ourselves to the point that we democratize AI and the building block on the system and the structures that sit on. It's just making sure that and being deliberate enough to make sure that AI is in every corner of the world and that people understand what it is, because honestly, it's not that complex as we might think. And I understand, and also the fact that we also need to understand the impact it has on us. We're being surveilled on AI, right? The most destructive and entangled AI solution or models that exist today are causing harm to us. So it's just that big conversation we all need to have.
Right, Felicia. Thank you for sharing that with us. Paula, I'll be bringing you into the next question. Do you think humanity is prepared for the ethical complexity created by combining AI with other powerful emerging technologies? Do you think we're ready? Do you think we're prepared? Do you think we can handle it? Paula, please tell us.
Well, I think it bleeds into everything we've been talking about, right? So the question is no, because technology is moving so fast and we're so behind. Going back to education piece, you're talking about professors. I sit on a board where, some of the professors are learning AI right now to be able to teach the class AI, right? Some of the college students don't even know AI, and they need to know it because in 2030, our businesses, that's the way we're evolving, right? That's what McKinsey, that's what all the literature is saying, that by 2030 we're going to be here. So when you're talking about ethics and you're talking about AI, we're not there yet. And I'm not sure how we're going to get there yet, except educating people. You got the early adopters. So who's responsible for educating those that are behind? The professors. I think it's the people who are early adopters. I think it's the people in some of the corporate world, some of the people in the technology space that understands where this is evolving. And with that, they need to start teaching. I think some of the AI platforms do provide good courses for, and I'm also an advocate for, I call it universal YouTube University, for the content creators out there who are doing it. But we need to get the people together to say, this is coming down. It's not gonna go away. I mean, I listen to Bloomberg day in and day out. They talk about AI like it's every day and every day. So it's not going to go away. And we need to understand that, and we need to start educating those who don't understand. And we need to upskill them. It's not about losing a job, it's about creating new spaces and new jobs that are taken over, especially those tasks that we don't want to do. This is the opportunity to put yourself in that limelight to be more productive. Of course, of course, the company's gonna be like, be productive, but we're not gonna pay you anymore. But still, it's just gonna be it's our future.
Thank you, Paula. I also agree with you on the advocacy side. I'll bring in Vanisha and Dr. Love on this one. And Vanisha, coming back to you with what Paula just shared, we're not ready yet, we're not there yet. Then who is
May
in
I
charge
add
of
an observation to that before we get into the next one?
Okay, quickly, as brief as you can, please.
Yeah. Okay, real quick. So I just wanted to mention about the progress so far that is happening, that I'm seeing in some of my clients' environment. So what is happening in terms of readiness is that I'm seeing global frameworks coming up, publications like ISO 42001 standards are being released and also being implemented in different environments that are also being cascaded down. We are also seeing AI regulations in different parts of the world. So I think we've not yet made so much progress, but we are getting there. Because also this is an evolving environment. I just wanted to mention that there's something coming up.
Veronica is giving us hope, everyone, that we're getting there and something is happening in the grassroots. We'll look
We're
forward to it.
getting.
Thank you very much, Veronica. Venetia, let's talk about regulations. Where should regulation focus? The AI itself or the ecosystem it integrates into?
Very good question. Both.
Both.
We can't only regulate the AI model while ignoring the environment it operates in. Really, context matters, right? Within the framework that I work in, healthcare systems, education systems, social media, surveillance, and immersive environments all carry different risks and human consequences. And so with that, really needing both of the AI itself and the ecosystems to be regulated. We are seeing different things here in the U.S. where deregulation is in place already in these environments. But if we really want to make an impact, there needs to be focus on the environment and the ecosystems that are being built. I think earlier on in the conversation, or rather, was it in the fire chat? I'm kind of getting things confused a little bit. I think a question about even water, right? Our infrastructure, how AI is built, and the water in which is being tapped wherever we are globally, right? That piece of the infrastructure is important. Alternative water sources for AI may sound like a technical infrastructure conversation, but its core is deeply human. As AI grows, so does its demand on energy and our water systems. If we cannot, we keep. If we continue pulling heavily from potable fresh water supplies, the communities most vulnerable to water insecurity will feel the impact first, right? Using things like recyclable wastewater, reclaim municipal water, or harvested rainwater for AI cooling really reflects a more human-centered approach to innovation. It shows an understanding that technological processes should not come at the expense of people. And to me, this is where ethics and infrastructure meet humanity. The future AI can not only be about speed and scale, it has to also consider sustainability and equity and stewardship of our shared resources. And this is for our future generations. And so this is something that I think as a global community, we need to focus on.
Truly, Venetia, truly. We need to focus on that. Thank you very much, Venetia. Dr. Love, tell us, according to Lean, Dr. Love for president. So, Dr. Love, tell us, where should governance evolve to match this convergence? Tell us.
Yeah, so I will first of all just want to respond back that I think it is important the environmental elements of what we're looking at. I also think it's like this balance of like we need to also make sure we really understand it, that good people get there first, if that makes sense. So it's like this balance. I do think that we need to invest in understanding more about how the water is managed and the impact while we're still pursuing the good use of it. I think where I get most concerned about is things like incentive, ownership, data control, transparency, all the things that like all the reasons we don't even trust maybe social media companies today with our data. I think AI increases the level of risk. I think it increases the level of potential for people to hurt one another. And I think we all know that. So our trust issue is with ourselves and with people that we think will use these things to hurt other people. And so that's why I think that the governance to ensure that we're thinking about things like even like you're talking about healthcare systems, financial systems, social systems, psychological systems all coming together, right? What is the actual environment we're going to create? How are we going to ensure that, for example, all of our children don't become dumber because of AI? How do you use AI instead to actually create programs and virtual worlds where they are being encouraged to learn reading, to learn how to do decision making, right? We can program AI to take them down an incredible personalized education journey, right? But that has to be chosen. We have to choose to democratize education with AI. We can't just allow it to be used for profit. And that's where I see the role of policy really coming in and ensuring that we're getting what the people want from AI and not just what the economics want. And that's
Dr.
going to
Law,
take really advanced policy and thinking.
yes, yes, Dr. Law, looking at the state at where we are now globally, do you think that we have governance policies in place with the current state of the technology right now?
I don't. And I think a big part of that, and that's part of why I got involved in politics, is that we need smarter politicians. You need people
Hmm.
that really understand the technology, right? And then you also need a real commitment. I have an AI for Georgia initiative where I really want to see Georgia take a step in and look at everything to build a platform upon which people can entrepreneur. Because it's really the people. The power of the people can be harnessed by AI and used to develop amazing things for wealth gap addressing or education or the prison system working better.
Hmm.
And so all of those areas, I don't see it. That's what I'm standing up to do, is to create what I don't see.
Hmm. Thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing, Dr. Law. Lynn, let's come to you. What
Yes.
responsibility do developers carry in designing human-centered experiences? The developers are the ones engineering these tools, these technologies.
Well,
What
this is
responsibility?
perfect. They need to be
Yeah.
doing the inner work. They need to be doing the personal growth work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm here to be a disruptor. So I'm just going to, a lot of people have been saying like the answer is more education. The answer is not more education. The problems we are facing cannot be solved at the level of the mind. It's time to go deeper into the systems and start thinking about culture and the way we have designed our culture. One of the things that someone was talking about was our kids using AI to get things done faster. And I'm like, if they can get it done faster, I can get so much work done with AI. It's amazing. Now, am I going to just work more and have more productivity and more output? Or am I going to close my laptop and go to the park and kayak around the lake? So a lot of this is letting go, let the AI make our lives easier, let it make us more inquisitive, knowing what questions to ask. So it's a dialogue with this AI, and then know when to not make it about productivity anymore. And so when the people that are creating the infrastructure, the developers, are all about the productivity, I can get twice as much done, but are they working half as many hours? And so this is where it comes in the governance part of, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but like the paid time off, like all of the reasons that people don't take time off is largely because of the economics, which at the core
Hmm.
goes to the governance. And so it really is a culture shift that needs to happen. And I don't think there's anything of the mind that can solve this problems. We are, I heard Dr. Love say the word consciousness, and I don't think we use that word enough. For me, that's a spiritual term, but I feel like it might be out. It can be probably a little bit more grounded. I have a thing called the Purpose Embodiment Academy. So purpose is not just a spiritual word. It's also, if anyone's familiar with Eckhart Tolle, we have an outer purpose. That's what we're doing in the world right now. We are gathered here. We are talking about important things and sharing ideas. But then we have to turn back into the inner purpose, finding that inner purpose, which is far deeper than any output. And then the beauty comes when people are working on the inner purpose and the outer purpose, and they come together. And then we see this cultural shift. because every one of us is a flower blossoming. And so as each one blossoms, we have this field. And, you know, I love AI for what is coming for virtual reality, especially for people in war-torn places, people in hospitals. But I do not want to see our children in the metaverse. I want to see them paddling out on a lake. I want to see them rollerblading. I want to see them running marathons. I fire spin. I do aerial. And so we can't forget about the outside world. And I just think that, you know, virtual reality needs to be a specialty niche for people that can't be in the outside world. And that gets into a whole other thing of teaching humans. You know, COVID really had an impact on a lot of people, and we kind of forgot how to converse in person, face to face. And that just takes it to a whole nother level. And so I think there needs to somehow AI needs to have more person to person. You know, I can't wait for GatherVerse in person, like when we all get together in the same room.
Right. People
But yeah,
looking
so
for
just kind of like, again, I'm always going to steer it back to the inner world, because 99.99 empty space, friends, like this physical reality is not as real as we think it is. And so if we're asking for the truth to emerge, then we have to start living from truth. And that's inner. That's a quality that bursts forth from within.
Thank you, Lynn. That's so much you just unpacked there. Thank you. And you just move fast to the next question when you talked about cultural norms and all that. And we have very few minutes left on this call, this roundtable conversation. Pooja, Veronica, Sunil, Felicia, and Paula. I just want, as brief as you can, Pooja, tell us, do you think that the cultural norms are being affected currently? From where you are, from your standpoint of view, as brief as you can.
Okay, but to start with, I'd like to say that technology has never been culturally neutral. When AI systems are trained mostly on Western data, because the initially AI models were from the Western countries, so when they were trained on Western data, they tend to carry ideas and beliefs of those cultures, you know. And when people around the world they start using these tools, they can unintentionally promote certain way of thinking about language, appearance, behavior, and all those things, which might make local tradition or customs less common over time. So this is one part of it. The other side is that at the same time, these digital tools can help smaller or lesser known cultures keep their language, stories, and identities alive and share them widely. So whether technology helps protect or erodes culture depends on who create these tools. You know, if there are people involved in the loop right from the beginning, and if people from different cultures are involved, then designing them would give them a different flavor altogether, a balanced flavor altogether.
Thank you,
So that
Pooja, for
was my
that.
point of view.
Thank you. Thank you, Pooja, for that one. Veronica, Sunil, and
Mhm.
Felicia, and Pooja. I usually in most of my panels, I love to do one word, because sometimes I think that when we sum our thoughts into one expression, it means it carries a lot of weight. And because we have very little time with us, Veronica, I'd like for you to tell us what you would like to see in the direction we're heading.
Wow, that's a loaded one. But to submit on what you've asked about culture, I'm in Africa right now, and if you happen to look at how we engage with the models, it is we are more like using products that have already been invented. But imagine we have a lot of data that is out here that has not been embedded into the AI ecosystem. So, and also what I'm seeing also is that the loudest voices around AI are not always the practical ones. Like we have all the information, the exposure out here, but when it comes to reality, to having a tool that is specific and helping a particular region or particular demographic, usually it's not, that is not the case. So what I would like to see is having this ecosystem, opening this ecosystem to everybody, not just a specific demographic or a specific team that has probably the tools that are able to to develop these systems. The other thing is also opening up this knowledge. I'll tell you for a fact there are AI tools out here where accessing them you need to pay a certain amount, but in some demographics it is free. So it is not like it's a balanced access. Like the accessibility to these, accessibility to just the technology itself is not the same. So what I would like to see is considering different demographics when we are coming up with different AI products, and also to remember that artificial intelligence, however much we are leveraging so much on it, it is not the wisdom that people have and the exposure that people have in different regions where they are located. So putting into consideration that the differences, the culture differences, the demographics, the challenges people go through, and the opportunities that are in different regions. I think if we add that into one ecosystem, we will be able to AI to benefit everybody and everywhere there. Thanks.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Veronica. I hope to see that as well. So, Neil, in one sentence, please. We have very few time on our clock. Tell us, what would you like to see with the direction we're heading?
I guess we already discussed, but I think the technology will be expand faster than how we are able to manage from human point of view. So, and as mentioned already by several speakers, I think also in several branches, even in healthcare or any of them, even on management level or political level, they should be able to aware what's going on. Not too much in depth as technical, but they should be able and know what's going on, because yeah, it's too fast, I guess, for the human to be on time to knowing what the technology will bring us.
Thank you, Sonia. I hope to see that as well. Felicia, what would you like to see with the direction we're heading?
Yes, honestly, I would like to see AI conversations and the technology being democratized. And we need to be able to prevent the hive from being consolidated into a closed economy where it's only controlled by handful. We need to be able to make sure that everybody have access, everybody is controlling, not just as a users, but as builders and as innovators in this space.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you. Paula, tell us, what would you
Uh,
like to see in the direction we're heading?
I am agreeing with Veronica, but I just want to add in that as we are learning and engaging with AI, to keep in mind that our minds is what goes at an output, and that let's not forget that we need to think about what we're trying to do and then have the output, and not the other way around where people like, oh, let me ask AI and then go with whatever AI says. That think. Just continually to think. That's what I look for, want to see.
Yes, I hope we will have a society where we build a society rather of thinkers, and the kind of society that we will cherish relationships and build in that relationships among ourselves as humans. As Venetia has mentioned, Dr. Love, Lean, Pooja, Veronica, Sunil, Felicia, Paula. It's all about us as humans, and who we are also reflects what we build as humans. And I hope that the creators, the builders, the advocates, that we can all work together to build technologies that will keep us safe as humans, as societies, as families, ethically, and protect us as humans. Thank you very much, panelists, for joining this conversation. I'm grateful for your time with us here and your expressions. We hope to see you in future summits. Please join us in the next one. And as Christopher would say, as quick as it comes and as quick as it goes, our gather was well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, people.
Thank you.
Greetings. Welcome to our final fireside chat. My name is Lingit Tao, Communications Director at GatherVerse. And with me, I have the one and only Dr. Crawford. And it's such a very honor to have you for GatherVerse. And I think this is your first time, so we welcome you very much. And before we even jump into the conversation of today, we are going to talk about humanity first, AI governance from principle to operation practice. So tell us who you are, what inspired you to join us today, and what do you do?
Well, thank you so much, Lynn and Christopher, for this gracious extension to gather together. As we have a gathering of the minds, I am honored to be here. I am Dr. Sancian Crawford, a global AI governance and regulatory intelligence advisor. I work where AI meets U.S. federal policy and it meets intentional international governance. So, what does that mean, Lynn? It means I advise federal health agencies, including HHS, FDA, CDC, NIH, CMS, and the like, on translating AI principles into operational practice. It also means contributing to international policy conversations, such as the World Health Organizations and the United Nations and other governing bodies. In that, I have built a methodology called Jamie. It's a justified agentic intelligence mission executive where I created a gap filler because I've been seeing organizations have the ethical statements, the committees, but not the operational architecture that Jamie really helps to fill at the executive level. So the question that defines my work, Lynn, is not what AI can do, but what it should be allowed to do, for whom, and at what cost. That's why I'm here today, and that's the talk we'll be having at this fireside chat. So thank you again for having me.
We're very, very honored. And from your wealth of experience, it's such a delight to even have you sharing what you just shared, your framework, if I could say, Jane. I believe one of the questions that you really ask, I've seen what you've done, is what are we not asking? Because when we ask the wrong question, we will scale up the wrong problem.
Yes.
So what are we not asking about AI governance across policy, across organizations, across startups?
Lynn, that is the question my work career has been governed around. And so let me be precise. Most leaders are asking AI questions that sound rigorous but skip the premise. They ask, how do we deploy AI before they ask, should we even deploy AI? They ask, how do we scale this model before they ask, does this model count? And what does this model ignore? They're asking, what is our AI strategy before they ask, what problems are we actually solving and for whom? And if they're not asking the right question, then they're operating under the wrong premise. And operating under the wrong premise is what scales AI faster. So AI is at the speed of AI, they say, right? So AI scaled answers at a velocity human institutions cannot govern after the fact. So, what leaders should be asking is a different category of questions. Not what can AI do, but what should AI be allowed to do, for whom, and again, at what cost? Because it's not that we can't adopt AI, it's how are we adopting accountability for AI? Not how do we move faster, but where can we afford to get it wrong? And where can we not afford to get it wrong? Because there are human lives at the end of this. So the shift is from capable questions to consequence questions. And Lynn, that is the rethink.
Consequences. That is the part that majority of us are concerned about, but no one is really addressing it as loud as it should. And that's why we're having a conversation like this that we're having right now. And you mentioned something very profound that really struck a chord of me, is who should we really deploy this AI for? Should we even deploy it, first of all? And even if we deploy it, what's the best way to scale? And this brings me to the practical, just simple question. What constitutes of a practical application of a humanity-centered AI governance that really answers who, why, what, then what? After that, what are the consequences? Yeah, please kindly.
For sure. So AI-centric is where the needle is currently moving, but we need to scale back just a bit and make sure we have human-centric AI governance and not allow it just to be a philosophy. It needs to be an architecture that's built in. The practical application starts at the moment leaders stop confusing principle with practice. See, principle is what you announce. Practice is what you answer for. In my federal advisory work, the pattern is consistent. These organizations, we have the AI ethics, the committees, the language. What we do not have is the operational architecture that converts those principles into decisions that can be measured, audited, and reversed should they fail. So what Jamie brings into the conversation is those 5 key questions, and I'm going to go back to them because repetition is needed in this moment because these questions need to be answered. These quiet questions need to be now brought out loud, right? Within the AI deployment. And that is the AI justified? And at what standard? Is the agency clear on who the AI is acting for and who is accountable for it? Is the intelligence appropriate to the decision, or is the system more competent than the data supports? This is the alignment that I'm working towards. And that same alignment should be in the mission of every organization, not just at the highest realm in which I work, which is federal, but it needs to ensure that AI isn't being quietly substituted in that mission. And that executive layer accountability has identified the risk, should the risk be delegated outside of that authority. So in short, Lynn, the principal application of human-centric AI governance is not the adoption of better language. It is the adoption of better accountable architecture.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And it feels like sometimes we do not walk the talk. The frameworks are there, the meetings after meetings, there's so many things going on, but who is walking the talk? And that just leads me to a shift on what you said, making accountable actions. But there are some hidden consequences that we may have not seen, or leaders may have not seen, and even technologists may have not seen. For example, we heard from Christopher when he was opening this whole summit. He told us the godfathers of AI themselves are disagreeing. These are people who have spent decades and decades studying this thing and building this thing. But yes, there's still a blind spot that some of them are not seeing or they're disagreeing on. So how can institutions really prepare themselves for the effects of AI systems that may have not been seen immediately? Or is it too late? Are we too late? Is it too early? Is there a point of we can go back, guys, and correct something? Let me know.
So the difference between the founders and myself is that I have a scientific public health epidemiology background. And in public health, it teaches something about AI governance that AI itself has not learned yet. And that is harm rarely reverses at the moment of decision. It shows up in the data later, in populations and communities that weren't accounted for, in outcomes that was not measured before what was expected is revealed. And it's the same thing with AI systems we need to learn as science and public health teaches us, is that we need to fail forward in that by the time the harm is visible, Lynn, the system has already scaled the speed of AI. AI does not fail in abstract. It fails a person, a community, populations, people, and mostly institutions don't even account for the people in which it will fail. So 3 operational moves that every institution and everyone here, every person utilizing AI needs to consider. And that is the delay of harm before deployment. Think about the harm. Define what failure looks like 6 months out from now, within the next 2 years, across populations, across outcomes. What are we not defining? And that is failure. Define what failure looks like. If this AI thing does not work out, what does society look like?
Yes.
Thinking with the end in mind. The second move is building reversibility in the system. Most deployments treat rollout as a contingency, and it should be a precondition. And third and final is assign accountability with authority. Again, accountability is a key term here. The person with seniority to hit that kill switch, which we have none currently. Have that person have a name that is associated with the harm. Otherwise, risk is delegated and authority is hoarded. This is how invisible failure becomes institutional failure, which becomes a human failure. And that's what my life work is towards, Lynn.
Yes, I appreciate that you really broke that down into very, very simple phrases that can be understood by everyone. And you've talked about accountability, and I will stick on accountability first because I believe that is where everything begins. And also, please, before I even go to accountability, what is failure to you? If this systems fail the world, what does that look like for you? And then I want you to answer what kind of governance or leaders are required in this period of time.
Sure. So I want to make it clear that I'm very optimistic about AI. I am an AI user. AI has really led to much capabilities in the realm of reducing cognitive load. AI is a tool in which we can really allow the weight to be carried upon while we as human carry the vision. So even though it sounds like a lot of doom and gloom, I am optimistic about AI capability, but discipline about AI consequence is necessary. Innovation and governance should not compete. They should mature together because governance isn't what happens after. Many people treat it as a speed bump when it should be the guardrail that enables sustainable velocity. So AI can compute, but only humans can be accountable. Without governance, you're essentially asking the fox to guard the henhouse. And when has that ever been the right move? When does the fox truly guard the henhouse? What happens? Let's think about that for just a moment, but not too much. And to your second point, what kind of leadership is required to govern AI? Well, leaders who govern AI responsibly over the next decade share these similar qualities. And unfortunately, Lynn, most organizations are not currently selecting for any of them currently. And that is clarity of mission. Clarity of mission, Lynn. AI is a force multiplier. It multiplies what is already there. If the mission is unclear, AI is not going to come and bring in the clarity. It will accelerate the confusion. It will accelerate the chaos. So leaders need to articulate in operational terms what they will be accounted for and what they will refuse to delegate to a system that cannot be questioned. Second, governance literacy at the executive level. What I'm seeing, Lynn, is that boards, C-suites are still treating AI governance as a technical problem. It's not. It's a fiduciary problem, a regulatory problem, a human consequence problem. For those in the chat, say human consequences are beyond AI. So leaders who can't reason about AI risk at the level they reason with financial risk cannot govern it. And that is a hard truth that we have to realize in AI leadership. Finally, I'll mention, Liz, discipline. discipline to slow down at the right things at the right moment, because AI truly is about speed. But speed is not a strategy. Speed without governance is liability. Another thing, put in the chat. Speed without governance is a liability. The leaders who govern AI well will not be the ones who tell the difference between a question that was answered quickly, but the ones who are able to slow down and use their human cognitive reason to refuse answers that weren't architectured in the right place, in the right context. So again, those three are, and if you're still active in the chat, are mission clarity, governance literacy, and discipline, strategic discipline. That is the leadership skills shaping the next generation, Lynn.
That's amazing. And our time is very limited, as quick as comes, as quick as it goes. What is just your final take that you would really want to see in the near future? What value, what do you stand for the next coming years, or what you want to see briefly?
So I want to stand at the place where I was involved in ensuring that we utilized AI responsibly. That as AI capabilities accelerate, we ensure that these two gaps were being met. And the two gaps that I'm going to mention are gaps that aren't being currently identified, because we're now in the agentic area of AI. And currently, AI governance assumes a human in the loop, a recommendation that a person is there for approval. But with AI governance, that breaks that assumption. With AI agency or agentic AI, that assumption is completely broken, because these systems are acting on their own. These systems are signing off on integral steps that aren't being signed off by human. They are integrating with other systems. They are compounding decisions in a way that aren't traceable. And governance frameworks that are currently written and the ones that are in draft to be approved are written for predictive AI. And those rules and governance will not survive the contact of agentic AI. So most organizations haven't noticed that shift, but the sooner we're able to notice and have these conversations and have these gatherings, we can prepare for the sovereignty of AI that is here. Lastly, Lynn, it's also the cross-jurisdiction gap that I'm also seeing. See, I work where U.S. federal frameworks meet international standards in health and healthcare and health practices, in practices that we cannot afford to get AI wrong, because there's a human life at the end of those decisions. So the standards right now are not aligned. The definitions of risk, harm, accountability, they do not align. So global enterprises that are deploying AI across these jurisdictions are doing so simultaneously without some level of standardization to ensure human first and humanity. Because governance is being written for a version of AI that already doesn't exist. So by institutions, they are, with that level of capability scaling, it is my life purpose at this time to ensure that those gaps are met to preserve human integrity.
And Dr. Crawford, at GatherVerse, we really appreciate leaders like you who bring heartfelt expressions and bring in from their wealth of experience. And we really welcome you once again. And thank you so much for your time. I'm sure you have seen other gathers that are coming up. Shout out to Women's AI Summit. I'm looking forward to see you there. And just literally, our gather was well for this fireside chat. Thank you for your time. This was an awesome time. Over to you, GatherVerse team.
The era of frameworks without manifested impact is over. In a world where dignitaries, executives, and presidents and ethicists ask us to find the red button, I say the red button doesn't exist. At a time where they say for us that where we find ourselves in is a necessity to slow down with great respect, I disagree and believe that we're not moving fast enough. You cannot ask us to slow down in an era where the machines become more advanced than humans. However, we must need to learn fast ethically. It is tantamount that we start to secure trustworthy environments, trust layer ecosystems, and as it was just expressed, actual impactful AI governance. I've traveled around the world speaking this, and I'm so happy to hear that others are as well. If all we do is vibe code today, then who safeguards the preservation of humanity itself tomorrow? We have put in 100x more contribution into AI infrastructure than the bellies on human children. We have cared so much about building and hyperscaling that we're willing to sacrifice the majority of the Earth's water, resources, and oxygen-giving life of the trees and the forest about us. Have we no dignity at the innovative level? Have we forgotten who and why we innovate and for? Have we any morsel of consideration, considering the immensity of the magnitude of where we find ourselves in, that we have become a society that is so centric on development for profit gain that we have forgot about the very people, our adopters, our users, subscribers, that we want to be able to use our products and services? But have we considered that if we stay on today's present trajectory, there will not be anyone that can afford your products and services? We've heard from a bevy, a litany of different expressions from the heart, transmetropolitan, transcontinental, where all of you have come to assemble and join us at GatherVerse.live and various social streams. But even I, as the founder of GatherVerse, at this 44 Global Summit, is AI Evolved Day 1 2026, I would submit to you with all the firesides, roundtable discussions, and talks and chats we've had, it is not enough. We need investment dollars into the infrastructure of the hands of those that care. We need to fund more leaders like we just heard. We need to fund their aspirations for human betterment, sustainability, and the conditions of the human heart. We need more capital for heart centers as opposed to data centers. We need to do more than sit here and speak and express, whether it's in person, virtual, or what have you. But ladies and gentlemen, make no doubt and no mistake about it. It is too late to put this genie back in the bottle. We reap what we sow. We live with this. This is ours now. And at best, what we can do is set the encampments ablaze with fortification of trustworthy tools, of safeguarded mechanisms, of true ethical governance structures, and to let and teach our children and our elders and those in between to never surrender your judgment, your considerations, the truth embedded within that you've had since entering this world from your mother's womb, to never surrender those things, this agency that we have, to a machine. I hear people time and time again. I see it on LinkedIn. I have now seen more AI expressions than humans. Have we lost the confidence? Have we lost the courage to think? Have we lost the courage to decide and to make a decision? Must we run to these machines at every turn in the corner to make a decision in our daily lives? Are these machines that are mostly man-made? Making that decision for a woman's body. It's too late to put this genie back in the bottle, but it's not too late to support, to fund, to listen, learn, and hear those who have better pathways beyond a framework. Your framework serves the benefit of a rock in a garden if it doesn't grow. It's best used for campfire in the forest. This is only day 1. Day 2 is tomorrow. And day 3 is upon us yet. This is the most important event happening in the world of technology this week. Because GatherVerse meets at this intersection of emerging technologies and humanity, and don't let anyone tell you the difference. Because in a world where we're so enamored, we're such in the deep doldrums of disparity of tech lust, that we're so held and suspended by an IPO, you cannot have success in an unstable environment. If we do not address these situations and issues now, and if we don't even attempt to make a difference, then that each of us deserve what we'll receive. If this is the future that you want, if this is the future that you believe that shall be, then there's never a need for the hearts that have came presented to ourselves. There is no need for the women and men leaders that have come to express, to help us find safe, trustworthy, innovative steps forward into the frontier of artificial intelligence in the world emerging of innovations that we know not. Tell a neighbor, tell a friend, tell a stranger that there was a group of women and men that assembled here today in May 26, 2026, to give a modicum level, an iota, if you will, of an offering of compassion in the world of hyperscale in a way that we've never been before. That there were those of Sacagawea and Ponce de Leon, Lewis and Clark, that sought a new country, rolled the dice, created a map for all of us, and landed. Though not the same, these are the principles of business. And until next time, as we conclude on this day 1 of GatherVerse AI Evolve 2026, our gather was well. And on tomorrow, if we're afforded such the opportunity to gather again, when we meet, may your gather be well.
Mothers, tell your children not to do what I have done. Spend your lives in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun. Well, there is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I know